The boy raised a wooden stick high in the air. I'm a wizard. The boy lunged forward. Eat my magic, you monster. The girl growled and lunged back at him. I'm a monster. I eat wizards. The boy swung his stick with all his might. The boy struck the girl on the head. The girl clutched her head in pain. Ouch! How can you hit me for real? The boy crossed his arms. Monsters are supposed to lose to wizards. The girl pouted. In that case, I want to be a wizard too. The boy protested. No, that's not fair. Rabuz laughed as he approached them. Ho ho, you sure are energetic in the morning, little ones. The boy cheered. Grandpa Rabuz. The boy looked up with wide eyes. What do I need to do to become a wizard? Rabuz explained calmly. You can't become one just because you want to. Wizards are the apex of humanity, ones who rule over humans from the highest hierarchies. They're nobles and knights who inherited the ability to use mysterious powers from our ancestors. So, unfortunately, you too can't become wizards. The young man behind him frowned. Elder, how could you say something like that to children? Rabuz looked away. Well, that's that. Is it true? The young man asked. What is? The young man looked concerned. I heard a monster appeared. Rabuz nodded slowly. It's true. The woman gasped. Oh no. The young man continued. They say Rop came across it at the entrance last night. A massive shadow loomed in the forest. They said its whole body was covered in a pitch-black shadow, and it was a leopard as big as a house. The woman comforted the girl. But don't worry, the village chief went to the city to request for a wizard. He'll definitely bring a wizard back, and the monster will be subjugated. The young man sighed. That's a relief. The young man patted the girl's head. You heard, right? For the time being, you cannot go into the forest. Rabuz gripped his wooden staff. You all should be careful as well. Without a wizard, killing a monster is close to impossible. The young man asked. Do all the villagers know? Rabuz answered. Of course. The young man looked toward the distant hills. Then what about him? Rabuz questioned. Who? The young man replied. The shepherd on Hisaril Hill. Turan lay in the tall grass as his sheep grazed. This is so boring. The same scenery, the same day, over and over. At this rate, I'm going to forget how to talk. Rabuz stood over him and glared. Pathetic brat. The sun hasn't even started to set, and you're already slacking off? Turan looked up lazily. You're blocking the sunlight. Move, Rabuz grumbled. You have no manners. Turan smiled and stayed on the ground. Are you still holding on to that incident from back then? Rabuz looked confused. That incident? Turan sat up. Ah, you mean when my mother died, and you tried to quietly turn the sheep into shared property? Rabuz cleared his throat. Ahem. Turan continued. Yeah, if that's what you mean, then yes. I'm not generous enough to share my mother's inheritance, you know. Rabuz shouted. We're not close enough to be asking how we're doing, so if you came here, say what you want and get lost. Rabuz yelled. You little brat. Turan stared at him with sharp eyes. What? Rabuz grew serious. A monster has appeared. Turan asked. A monster? Rabuz explained. They say it's a leopard as big as a house. Rop found it. I'm on my way back after telling the villagers. Turan petted a white sheep. That's a serious problem. Rabuz scoffed. You're not scared, even though you're the most likely target around here? I don't know what kind of guts you've got. Anyway, the village chief went to the city to request a wizard, so be careful. I came because I was worried about you. Turan smirked. You're not very honest. Why can't you just say you came because you were worried about the sheep, not me? Rabuz shouted. You! Turan dismissed him. Old man, if you're done talking, get lost already. Your breath stinks so bad my nose is going to rot. Rabuz walked away into the distance. Turan watched him go. Monsters. Turan thought to himself. Beasts that wield mysterious power and magic. If humans have wizards, then beasts have monsters. A wizard is coming to a backwater village because of a monster? So I finally get to see a wizard in person. But if it's a rural village chief calling them, there's a good chance they won't be anything special, even if they're a wizard. Turan wondered. Still, I want to see one. Just how strong are they? Turan sniffed the air and looked alert. This smell, it's blood. The sun began to set over the trees. Turan walked quickly through the dark forest. I'm sure it was this way. Turan stopped and looked at the ground. Rabuz. Turan thought to himself. He told me to be careful, yet goes in first. So the source of the blood smell was Rabuz. This isn't a wound an ordinary wild animal could make. It has to be the monster. The monster growled as it stepped out of the shadows. The boy sat at the table with his father. How strong is a monster? Is it true even adults can't beat it? The father answered. They're insanely strong. If ordinary adults like me rush it, you won't even be able to collect my bones. The boy looked worried. So even you can't beat it? Then what will happen to our village now? The father put a hand on his shoulder. Don't worry, the village chief will bring a wizard. The wizard will subjugate the monster. The boy asked repeatedly. The wizard won't lose, right? The father smiled. Of course. They're great beings born with the power of magic. They'll kill the monster with a single word. The monster roared at Turan. Turan spoke calmly. Die. A massive explosion erupted in front of Turan. Turan watched the smoke clear. Not working? The monster lunged with a massive claw. Turan commanded. Stop. A force froze the monster in place. Turan thought to himself. I knew killing it wouldn't work, but it can't even be stopped? The monster roared and shattered the ground. Turan jumped back. In that case, Turan pulled out a small stone. A shepherd should do what a shepherd does. Turan swung his sling in a circle. Turan shouted, harden. Turan's eyes glowed with a gold light. Become faster. Turan released the shot. Pierced through. The projectile tore through the monster's chest. Blood sprayed across the forest. The beast screamed in agony as its body was shredded. Turan walked toward the fallen creature. Turan grinned. I'm aiming for the head. The stone crushed the monster's skull. The beast collapsed and lay still. Turan thought to himself, this is my first time using it on a monster. Turan looked at the bloody corpse. Should I toss it into some valley or something? Turan sighed. Tisk. Those village bastards sure put me to work. Turan clicked his tongue. All that for those townsfolk. Turan thought to himself, I am a wizard. Turan remembered his childhood. I realized that I had special abilities 8 years ago, when I was 10. Young Turan used his magic to lift the objects in the room. Look, the logs are flying. Mom. Young Turan giggled as the items floated through the air. I can make fire, and I can make wind. Turan thought to himself. The memories of that day are still clear in my mind. The mother screamed in fear. Stop it. Turan realized. It was the first and last time my mother got mad at me. Young Turan looked confused. Mom? The mother took his hand and led him to a chair. Turan, come and have a chat with your mother. The mother spoke softly. You want to live with me for a long time, right? Young Turan nodded. Yes. The mother looked him in the eye. Then promise me this. Promise that you won't use this power from now on. The mother continued. That you will never use this power in front of other people. Young Turan asked. Why? The mother looked down at him. Remember the story about the noble and the knight? Young Turan looked away. I remember. The mother explained. They call the people who wield this special power wizards, whether they are nobles or knights, but nobles and knights are inherently different. Nobles are descendants of the divine people, the Freyans, who descended to save the old humans. Knights are the descendants of those nobles whose blood has been mixed with humans. Young Turan nodded. Yes. The mother sighed. You remember. That is why they differentiate between nobles and knights, even amongst wizards. I will tell you why you can't use this power, Turan. You inherited the powers of your father, a knight. There are many evil nobles outside this town. The nobles who treat knights as their slaves. So remember this. Nobody can know that you are a wizard. You can promise me that, right? Turan looked out his window at the morning sky. 8 years have passed since then. I have continued to uphold the promise with my mother. The promise will not be broken. I have no desire to reveal myself as a wizard, or to descend the mountain. The door shook from heavy pounding. Turan, come out. Turan opened the door and yawned. So, you're saying I killed Rabus? The large villager grabbed Turan's collar. Yes. How shameless of you. You hurt that old man, Rabus, and threw him out to be eaten by monsters. Turan thought to himself. I see why you want to frame me. The man blinked. What? Turan narrowed his eyes. The oldest man in the village died alone, instead of the young men who were too scared to fight the monster. I can see why you think this is the best way out of that. That's the easiest way for you to shift blame from yourselves to me. The villager screamed in rage. Turan. Turan watched the punch coming slowly. Magic is convenient. Turan thought to himself. If I strongly wish for something, it happens at the cost of mana. Fall over. The men suddenly tripped and fell face first into the grass. Turan stood over them as they groaned. I don't need to start a fire. Turan thought to himself. Just a little bit, so that it's not obvious. Just enough for them not to die. I will dominate them. Turan beat the men until they could no longer stand. The wooden sticks broke against their bodies. Turan walked past the fallen villagers. And like that, for 8 years, I have hidden the fact that I am a wizard. Turan looked at the men. You should have used that strength for Rabu's funeral. Turan asked the women nearby. Are you here to fight too? The girls stammered. No, we came here to see you, Turan. Turan gestured to the men on the ground. Take these idiots down with you. Turan walked into his bedroom and sighed. It's going to be chaos in the town again. They're going to use this as an excuse to rip me off when I go to trade. Well, fine, I can beat them up until I get a fair deal. I gave them a proper whooping, so they shouldn't be back for the door rattled from a sudden knock. Turan wondered. They must be insane. Turan pulled the door open. Who is it? Do you really want to? Turan asked. Who are you? The traveler smiled politely. Excuse me, I thought I could ask for a favor in my travels, but I must have caught you at an inopportune moment. Turan wondered. A traveler? Turan spoke calmly. Ah, no, I apologize. A few uninvited guests just came here moments ago. My mother taught me manners, but was that proper enough? Turan thought to himself. I never talked nicely to anyone in that pathetic town, so this feels awkward. Turan wondered. Anyway, a traveler with a sword in this sleepy old town. Turan offered. If you're looking for an inn. Turan's stomach growled loudly. Turan sighed. Come in. Turan served a meal of bread and sausages. We're not well off, so we don't have much. The traveler ate with a large smile. Oh, but this is a feast. The traveler looked at Turan. You surprise me, though. You've never met someone from outside the town? Turan answered. That's right. I was born and raised on this hill, and have lived as a shepherd all this time. The traveler drank from a large mug. It's also rare for this small town to get tourists. Turan thought to himself. Interesting. Turan asked. Huh? The traveler smiled warmly. For someone who grew up here as a shepherd, you are quite well versed in manners. Your parents must have taught you well. Turan looked at the empty bed. I learned from my mother. But she died a few years ago due to an illness. The traveler touched his forehead. She raised a proud son like you, so I am sure she resides among the gods in a palace in the heavens. Turan stood up. I want to thank you once again. I just live the way my mother taught me. Turan leaned against the doorframe. But what brings you all the way out here to this country town? The traveler picked his teeth. I was asked a favor. Turan asked. A favor? The traveler looked serious. They were looking for someone to take care of a monster puma. I am a wizard. Turan stared at him in silence. You must be the wizard our village elder talked about. The traveler nodded. That's right. Can I ask a question now? Turan replied. Sure. The traveler leaned forward across the table. I sense a monster in this area, but I don't see a monster. The traveler continued. What's even weirder is that you know about the village elder and the monster, yet you seem calm and aren't running away. If the monster went for a human, it would be you. Aren't you scared? You seem awfully brave for a shepherd who has never left this town. The traveler looked him in the eye. Who are you? Turan thought to himself. Wizard. Young Turan asked. Why can't anyone know that I'm a wizard? The mother explained. Because of the bad nobles. Young Turan asked. Bad nobles? The mother spoke softly. If nobles are shepherds like us, then knights are the dogs that nobles keep. They might treat you with love, like family, but they can sell you off or sacrifice you if necessary. I don't want that kind of life for you, Turan. You want to keep living with your mom, right? Young Turan nodded. Yes. The mother held his hands. Then remember this. Nobody can know that you are a wizard. Especially other wizards. If they find out, they will separate us, and turn you into their shepherd dog to be discarded at any moment. Turan thought to himself. To avoid being found out as a wizard, Turan realized, you might have to kill people. Turan looked at Kiorn with a cold gaze. So this is what it comes to? Kiorn asked. Why can't you answer? Turan narrowed his eyes. Kiorn laughed and leaned back. If you make a face like that, it just makes my joke awkward. Turan realized. A joke? Turan sighed. I'm sorry, I don't really have a good sense of humor. Kiorn stood up and put a hand on the table. No, that's not it. I'm the one who should apologize. I think I flustered you. It's my first time hearing a wizard joke, so it caught me off guard. Your reaction was so entertaining that I took the teasing too far. Kiorn reached out his hand. Come to think of it, we still haven't introduced ourselves properly. Nice to meet you. I'm Kiorn, a wanderer. Turan shook his hand. I'm sorry, I should have introduced myself first. I'm Turan, a shepherd. Turan sat back down. I'm 18 years old this year. Kiorn took another bite of his food. And I'll be 75 this year. Turan looked surprised. You really don't look that old. Kiorn explained. Wizards age more slowly than ordinary people, and they live longer. Turan asked, how did you end up becoming a wanderer? Kiorn looked up at the ceiling. After serving the Arabian family for 60 years, I left. In my later years, I wanted to roam from place to place without settling down. Turan smiled. That's pretty romantic. Turan thought to himself. Sharing a harmless conversation with a good person like this, I didn't realize it could be this enjoyable. The light of dawn filtered through the window. Kiorn stood up. Wow, it's already gotten this late. Turan agreed. You're right, I didn't even notice the sun coming up. Kiorn picked up his gear. I should get going. Kiorn placed a coin on the table. This is Arabian silver. It's the purest among silver coins, so it should more than cover the cost of the meal. Turan took the coin. I'll accept it gratefully. I hope your hunt goes smoothly. Kiorn waved as he walked toward the door. Don't act like we'll never see each other again. I might come by a few more times to mooch off you on the way, you know? The sun rose over Hisaril Hill. The sheep bleated in the morning air. Turan looked at the flock. Gather. The sheep moved together toward the center of the field. Turan leaned on his staff. It's the first time I've ever met another wizard. But more than that, how long has it been since I had a conversation that felt this comfortable? The ease and humor that naturally seeped into his way of speaking. Turan petted a sheep. More than any adult I've ever met in my life, he really was a good person. Turan remembered Kiorn at the door. I'm back again, Turan thought to himself. I always thought knights were just emotionless hunting dogs used by arrogant nobles. Turan looked up at the sky. Anyway, how do I tell him that there are no more monsters on Hisaril Hill? Kiorn walked through the dense forest. That's strange. There are traces of a battle, but I can't feel a monster's presence. Kiorn looked at the scarred trees. Was the monster already hunted? Who in the world hunted it? Kiorn found a glowing crystal on the ground. Did the village chief leave it to another wizard besides me? Either way, it's a relief. If someone killed the monster and made things safe, that's all that matters. Kiorn gasped as the air grew heavy. A massive claw reached out from the shadows. The mutilated corpse of the leopard began to glow. Kiorn realized, a monster's wraith? Who would do something like this? The wraith lunged with its claws. Kiorn jumped back just in time. Kiorn thought to himself, if you don't absorb or disperse the mana from a dead monster's corpse, the monster turns into a wraith like this. A wizard who hunts monsters couldn't possibly not know that. So the one who killed this monster was definitely a wizard. Then why did they leave it to become a wraith? Did they not know it becomes a wraith if you don't absorb the mana? No. A novice knight who doesn't even know something that basic couldn't have killed a monster like this in the first place. Kiorn summoned a ball of golden light in his hand. Then, did they have some other intention? Either way, I have to destroy it. Kiorn transformed the mana into a long glowing spear. Kiorn threw the spear at the beast. The wraith swiped at the spear and shattered the magic. Kiorn was shocked. My magic was nullified? Does that mean that monster's mana is vastly stronger than mine? The wraith flickered and vanished. Kiorn looked around frantically. It disappeared? Is it trying to counter magic with magic? Where is it? The wraith appeared beneath his feet like a shadow. The wraith struck Kiorn and sent him flying through the trees. Kiorn coughed up blood. This isn't a level a mere knight can contend with. At the very least, you'd need to be a lower-ranking noble to have a chance. Kiorn struggled to stand. To think I'd run into a monster wraith of this caliber in some remote mountain village. You really never know what life will throw at you. The beast loomed over him and roared. Kiorn gritted his teeth. So, this is as far as I go. I'm not going to die obediently. Even if I die, I'll take you with me. Kiorn concentrated his remaining mana into his palm. I'll concentrate all my mana into my hand. If I stab it directly the moment it lunges at me. The wraith jumped into the air with its claws extended. A massive blue beam of light pierced the wraith's chest. The beast exploded into particles of mana. Kiorn stared in disbelief. Turan walked toward him with a sling in his hand. Are you all right? Kiorn realized. A shepherd's joke is pretty startling too. Turan. Kiorn looked at the young man. So you were a wizard? Turan answered. Yes, sir. Kiorn asked. Why didn't you tell me? Turan remained silent. Kiorn spoke again. No, let me change the question. Why did you help me just now? You could have just walked away. Turan replied. Because. Turan remembered their dinner. Turan asked. Why are you going this far? Kiorn replied. What do you mean? I don't know what skill the village chief promised you, but with your skill, I feel like you could earn a lot more money more comfortably. Kiorn looked serious. They're pitiful people. Turan asked. In what way? Kiorn answered. Living out here on the frontier, trembling in fear, without even basic protection. Turan argued. That isn't your fault, is it? Kiorn looked at his hands. A wizard is, by nature, someone who inherited the power of a god. If so, then we should live with pride in protecting powerless commoners. Well, not every wizard thinks the way I do. Everyone has their own thoughts, and their own way of living. Turan smiled. Doesn't everyone have their own way of living? A second wraith emerged from the shadows with a deafening roar. Kiorn stood up and blocked the path. Listen carefully. It's not a level we can handle. It's a monster you can't fight unless you're at least a noble. Go tell the village chief this immediately, and help them evacuate. I'll hold it here. Kiorn's hand glowed with fire. Kiorn thought to himself. I talked big, but I don't know how long I can last. Turan stood behind him. It's okay. Kiorn turned around. What? Turan levitated a jagged rock into the air. If that attack landed just now, I think it'll be okay. Kiorn asked. What are you talking about? Kiorn thought to himself. Is he saying that attack wasn't his full strength? A young knight hiding out in the mountains can hunt a wraith that even nobles have to deal with? The veteran knight Kiorn thought this. What he's seeing right now isn't just some small connection he happened to make in a rural village, nor is it the reckless bravado of a young knight who ran from nobles. Turan's body surged with massive blue energy. The scene before his eyes could be the beginning of a wizard who will turn the world upside down. Turan smirked. I was curious about my limits too. Kiorn shouted. I won't allow you to do it. No matter how outstanding your talent is, that thing is a tough opponent. We have to join forces. The monster lunged forward with a sharp claw. Kiorn realized. No, right now, I'd only get in the way. I couldn't even react to that last attack. At this moment, I'm not any help. What I need to do now is make Turan's talent bloom. The energy from Turan's attack exploded against the wraith. Turan cursed. Damn it. It's not working. Kiorn yelled. You can't kill a wraith with physical attacks. Turan asked. Then how do I kill it? Kiorn answered. With fire. Or lightning. Turan watched the monster. It's working. Kiorn shouted. That's not the point. To apply a wizard's power to another living being, establishing proper causality is a basic requirement. Don't tell me he doesn't even know the most basic common sense of a wizard. Kiorn froze in realization. Kiorn wondered, could it be he was the one who killed the monster and left it alone to become a wraith? So that means Turan has never absorbed mana in his life. Kiorn shouted, don't light a fire. Make it. Then shoot it. Kiorn thought to himself. And he's already that strong? Turan held out his hand and a spinning ball of fire appeared. Kiorn thought to himself. If you're a wizard, making a fire shouldn't be difficult, but controlling fire requires separate training. Kiorn gasped. He can do it immediately? Turan lunged at the beast and slammed the fire into its eye. The monster shrieked in pain as the flames spread. Kiorn shouted, keep your mind focused. You have to keep pouring mana into it so the fire doesn't go out. You have to burn everything about the wraith away. Turan narrowed his eyes and focused. The flames consumed the beast and the forest light up. Kiorn sighed in relief. We won. Kiorn stood up. That was an absurdly strong wraith. A wraith you'd need at least noble class power to fight. But he took it down. Turan stood over the smoking remains. Is it really over now? Kiorn thought to himself. A shepherd from the mountains did it. Kiorn looked at the ground. If you don't want to meet another wraith, absorb the mana first. Turan asked, how do I do that? Kiorn gestured. Imagine yourself draining something into you. Turan replied, all right. The green energy swirled around Turan as it entered his body. Turan gasped. Kiorn smiled. You'll feel some sort of pleasure. Kiorn sighed. I can't believe it even after seeing it with my own eyes. So this really was your first time absorbing mana? Turan answered. Yes. Kiorn explained. After one's first awakening, mana grows slowly with age. The best way to grow is to kill monsters or wizards and absorb their mana, but this was Turan's first time absorbing mana. Kiorn thought to himself. And yet, he's already able to handle magic at that level, meaning his innate potential is on a different league. Which means this young man is. Kiorn spoke. Turan. Turan replied. Yes. Kiorn bowed deeply. I've been very rude to you. May I ask which house you belong to? Turan was confused. Kiorn. Turan pointed to Korn's bleeding arm. Yes. Wipe your blood off first. Kiorn realized. Oh. Later that day, Kiorn sat in the cabin with a bandage. Kiorn spoke. Pardon me for my rudeness. For me to make someone so esteemed as yourself to do something like this, I can only apologize. Turan looked away. I've told you many times that I'm not esteemed. I'm just a shepherd who doesn't even know who his father is, so please stop it. Kiorn chuckled. All right, don't glare at me like that. Kiorn asked, but why would a powerful wizard like you be a shepherd? I don't mean to belittle you, but it doesn't seem like it suits you. Turan answered, it was my mother's request. She told me to do this right up until the moment she died. Kiorn wondered, your mother's request? Turan explained, below the mountain, there are nobles. If it's revealed that you're a wizard, you'll only be used by them and then thrown away. Kiorn thought to himself, she was wise. Turan asked, huh? I'm surprised since I thought you'd call it overprotective parenting. Kiorn looked serious. Your mother wasn't entirely wrong. Wizards have great power, and great power inevitably brings conflict. Just 20-some years ago, there was a major war between great noble houses. It was the war between the House of Arabian, which I served, and the Great House of Zahar. So many people died in that war. Out of roughly 3,000 Arabian knights at the time, more than 900 died. Nearly a third of them died. Kiorn looked at the ground. Sadly, everyone close to me was in that third. My friend Denver, who always said that he'd open a laundry shop once the war ended. My teacher Hartman, who scolded me, saying I still had so much to learn. And my beloved wife and son. They were all massacred by House Zahar, and I alone survived. That's why your mother was right to an extent. A knight's life can vanish more easily and more meaninglessly than a commoner's. But the one thing she was wrong about was your aptitude. Turan asked, my aptitude? Kiorn explained, it's embarrassing to say this while I'm in such a state, but I'm a knight with fairly good skill. Yet you easily destroyed the monster's wraith that even I couldn't bring down. Your potential isn't merely that of a knight. At minimum, you're noble level. And among them, at least upper tier aptitude. Turan wondered. My mother said my father was a knight, was that a lie? Kiorn replied. On rare occasions, a child worse than a knight is born among nobles, or a noble-class child is born among knights. Kiorn stood up. In that sense, I think it would be better for you to leave this hill, and go out into the world. Turan asked. Why? Kiorn answered. Because we humans need more nobles and knights. Humans still aren't the complete masters of the world. A bloodline ability is a trait nobles inherit from their ancestor, the Freyans. Whether or not you have a bloodline ability is also what separates nobles from knights. Was there any spell that felt unusually easy and simple when you used magic? Or some outstanding ability you have that doesn't need you to use magic? Turan clenched his fist. It's not that I'm strong, right? Just having mana makes a wizard's physical abilities stronger. I have a good nose, and I'm pretty good at throwing stones. Kiorn explained. If your sense of smell is exceptionally good, you can consider it a bloodline ability. Being skilled with thrown weapons is one of House Arabian's traits. It's a fairly common trait, though. Go on, tell me more. Turan replied. All right. I see. Kiorn turned around. Sir, why are you suddenly acting like this? I think I know which house your abilities are closest to. Turan asked. Which house is that? Kiorn spoke solemnly. A great house known as Pursuers, or Hunters. House Sahar, the one that fought a war with House Arabian. Turan gasped. House Sahar? You're telling me I'm from the same bloodline as the Elder's enemies? Turan swallowed hard as he looked at the ground. Turan wondered, what should I say to him? Should I apologize? But these are the actions of relatives I've never met, who are practically strangers. Kiorn spoke. Turan looked up. Elder. Kiorn smiled warmly. Don't make such a worried expression. Kiorn patted his shoulder. You didn't participate in that war yourself. Turan looked away, but still, Kiorn explained, it's an adult situation. If we try to wash blood with blood, the fighting will never end. Turan asked, don't you have regrets? Kiorn blinked. About what? Turan looked at him. About telling me to go down the hill. The wind whistled through the vast green field. Kiorn spoke calmly. If you go down the mountain and pursue power, you'll inevitably end up joining the Zahar family. You have outstanding abilities, after all. But I trust your character. Turan asked. Sorry. Kiorn continued. I'm talking about the goodness in you, since you saved me. Even while revealing an identity you'd hidden your whole life. Rather, if someone like you joined the Zahar family and rose to a high position within it, perhaps it could prevent such a terrible war from happening again. Turan remained silent and looked down. Kiorn sighed. Well, either way, there's no need to think too seriously about it. After all, it's not like you've decided right now whether or not to join the Zahar family. Turan spoke firmly. My thoughts are clear now. Kiorn asked. Turan looked at the horizon. I want to try going down the mountain. Kiorn smiled. You've thought well, but not right away. Turan replied. I'll head down once your injury heals, Elder. Kiorn laughed. How kind. I'm nearly a bit scratched. Truly, you're a really good person. The morning light filtered into the cabin. Kiorn explained. To use magic, you absolutely need mana. That's why mana is commonly called the key to omnipotence. Turan repeated. The key to omnipotence. Kiorn continued. It's not a truly omnipotent power as the name suggests, but to use magic, you need mana that matches it. Turan asked, what is the standard for mana that matches magic? Kiorn sat at the table. I'll explain that right now. The difficulty of magic is largely determined by 3 factors. Kiorn held up 3 fingers. First is bloodline, second is affinity, and third is causality. The first one, bloodline, is determined by the bloodline you were born with. This applies to most nobles who aren't knights. Kiorn looked at his hands. For example, it would be difficult for you to heal my wounds with magic, right? Turan answered. Yes, Kiorn explained, but for the Revista bloodline from the south, it's something they can do even without training. That's a power that comes from bloodline. Turan asked, what about the second one, affinity? Kiorn gestured. You can also think of it as familiarity. It's the concept that a mage can more easily perform tasks that they prefer or are used to. Turan realized, like how I made a fireball as if I was throwing a rock. Kiorn nodded. Correct. Probably, if you had simply made flames, you wouldn't have achieved that speed or firepower. And the last one is most important, causality. Even I don't fully understand it. Kiorn asked, what would happen if you tried to kill me directly using mana? Turan answered, probably some light would shine from my head and that would be it. Kiorn laughed. That's exactly the phenomenon that occurs from a lack of causality. Sparks of mana flickered over the wooden mug. Kiorn explained, When there's no appropriate cause for a desired outcome, and when what needs to be achieved is excessively difficult, that's when this applies. Turan thought for a moment. I think I understand what causality is a bit. If I wanted to kill you, rather than spending mana wishing for death, I would need to provide a cause of death, like creating and shooting flames, right? Turan continued, because creating and shooting fire is more natural than directly lighting one. Kiorn slammed his fist on the table. Exactly. You could have become a scholar instead of a mage. Turan asked, but I can control ordinary animals as I wish, so why is it that magical beasts need something like that? Kiorn replied, that's because of their mana. The sheep grazed outside the window as they talked. Turan sighed. Magic isn't easy, huh? Kiorn added, an excellent mage knows not just how to use mana, but the principles and situations behind it as well. Turan asked, now that I think of it, does the Zahar bloodline also have special magic? Kiorn answered, they're skilled in stealth and tracking. Kiorn looked at him. Try it once. Turan nodded. Okay. Turan thought to himself, I don't want to be seen by others. I wish neither sound nor smell could be detected. Mist began to swirl around Turan's feet. Kiorn asked, did it work? Turan vanished from sight. Kiorn smiled. You succeeded. I can't see you. Kiorn swallowed hard as he looked at the empty rug. Turan reappeared in the middle of the room. Turan spoke. It's been a while since I've seen it, but it's still a frightening ability. Kiorn explained. During the war, the Arabian Knights feared that ability most. Turan looked at his hands. This seems like an unfairly powerful ability. Kiorn stood up, but keep in mind it's not invincible. Now then, I'll teach you a few magic training methods. Turan asked, aren't you teaching too much to an enemy family's mage? Kiorn spoke sincerely. You saved my life and even treated me. And didn't I tell you? I trust your character. The village chief screamed in the street. What? You're selling the sheep and leaving? Then who's going to do the shepherding from now on? Chief shouted. How can you just decide something like that without consulting us? Turan carried a large pack on his back. You guys should figure out how to find a shepherd yourselves. How does it matter to you what I do with my belongings? Anyway, I hope you'll buy the sheep at a fair price. Otherwise, I'm going to release them all and leave. You're free to capture them, but you'll probably have quite a hard time doing it. The villager gasped. Village chief. Chief gritted his teeth in anger. Chief thought to himself, this bastard is someone who keeps his word. There's nothing that will come from irritating him. Chief spoke. Fine, I get it. Leave or stay, do whatever you want. Chief threw a heavy bag of coins to the ground. Turan and Kiorn walked down the mountain path together. Now that I think of it, those villagers, they still owe you compensation after everything. Should I go collect it? I had no intention of receiving it. And it was you who caught the magical beast, wasn't it? Kiorn nodded. All right, then now we must part ways here. Kiorn stopped at a fork in the road. Turan bowed. I'm sorry for refusing your offer to travel together. I'm more comfortable alone. Kiorn smiled. Not at all, Turan said. Thank you for everything. Kiorn waved. Turan, take care. Turan smiled back. Elder, I hope we can meet again with smiling faces. Kiorn walked into the forest. Turan watched Kiorn's retreating figure for a long time. Turan realized. Only later did I realize why I didn't want the old knight to speak to me formally. Although he never lacked affection from his mother, the boy had secretly been yearning for a father figure. Someone who could be a role model for what kind of man the boy should become. Turan's footprints marked the dry earth. The wind whistled through a deep canyon. Turan walked across the barren wasteland. Turan noticed a group in the distance. Turan thought to himself, are they traveling merchants that go from village to village? Good. Let's ask for directions. Turan approached the cloaked travelers. The leader looked at him from under his hood. Who are you to block our path? Turan asked politely. I'm traveling alone. May I ask about the nearest city? The leader pointed. If you follow the road we came from, you'll reach a city called Mage. Turan nodded. I see. Thank you for telling me. A man stepped in front of Turan's boots. Wait. The bandit looked at him with a wicked grin. You're just going to leave after getting information? Turan asked. What? Then? The bandit chuckled. If you receive something, you should give something in return. The other travelers pulled out their swords. The bandit demanded. First, take off that bulging bag. Turan looked at them. Bandits? The bandit laughed. So what if we are bandits? Let's call it recklessness. The leader raised his sword. This is a wasteland where no one would find it strange if someone died, right? Take off your bag and cloak yourself while we're being nice. Killing you and stripping you down would get unnecessarily bloody and take a lot of work. Turan looked at the ground. I see. Bandits who even kill people. Turan remembered his training with Kiorn. Turan smirks. Guess I'll use you guys for practice. The bandit laughed. Peeved. This lunatic's talking like he's some kind of wizard. The leader roared with laughter. For real, boss. Turan moved his hand quickly. Wind. A massive whirlwind erupted from his palm and sent the bandits flying into the air. They screamed in fear. Turan thought to himself, so instead of just generating wind out of thin air, shaping it with my hand and amplifying it uses far less mana. I didn't know I could whip up wind this strong with so little mana. The bandits groveled and groaned on the ground. The leader shouted, "What the hell?" Turan uncorked his bottle and drew the water out with his magic. The water froze into sharp ice shards in his palm. The bandit gaped in horror. Turan fired the shards with a flick of his wrist. The ice pierced the bandit's skin and he groaned in pain. Turan thought to himself, wasn't this supposed to be a spell that's useful when there's a lot of water nearby? Honestly, just throwing stones feels faster and stronger. The leader bandit knelt in the sand and trembled. "We didn't know you were a wizard. Please just forgive us this once. We'll give you anything you want. So please, just spare our lives." Turan raised his foot and slammed it down. A pillar of magical force erupted from the ground and consumed the bandits. The leader watched his men disappear. Impossible. They're all dead? Turan stood over the last survivor. "Let me ask you one thing." The bandit stammered. "Yes, wizard. I'll answer anything." Turan asked calmly. "Why did you attack me without a plan? If I'm a traveler walking alone, I could be a wizard just like now." Turan realized. "Because you bowed your head." "What? Even when we spoke to you rudely, you bowed and greeted us, so we assumed you were an ordinary person." Turan looked at him. "Thanks. That taught me something useful." The bandit begged. "Then, will you really spare me?" Turan hovered a drop of water over the man's head. Turan remembered Korn's voice. "Turan, from now on, you're going to meet a lot of people and there's something I absolutely want to tell you. Never show mercy to scum like bandits, the kind who don't hesitate to harm others to profit." Turan realized, the reason I'm saying this so firmly is, I think I understand the reason. Because a life I spare out of pity could end up harming 10 good people. Turan killed the final bandit with a burst of magic. Turan sighed. "I've stalled long enough." The road stretched into the distance. The road the merchants turned bandits dragged their cart along, those clear wheel tracks cutting across the sand, left one thought burned sharply into Turan's mind. I killed people. Turan looked down at the desert. He felt guilt, but he couldn't just let them go because Korn's warning came back to him. People who could decide, without hesitation, to rob and kill for profit would target others again, at any time. The tracks in the sand began to blur. Like wheel tracks in the desert slowly fading as weeds grow over them, Turan's chaotic heart gradually settled as he recalled Korn's teaching, and then, he arrived in a new world. Turan looked at the city on the horizon. Wow, so that's the place. Small city Murray lay before him. Turan walked through the gates. This is my first time seeing so many people crowding around. Even the architecture is completely different from the village. Now it really feels like I've come to a city. Turan approached a merchant at a fruit stand. "Excuse me." The merchant smiled. "Oh, welcome. What can I get you?" Turan replied. "Ah, I'm not a customer." Turan recalled Kiorn's words. If you reach a city and need a place to rest, look for an inn. No matter the village or city, there's usually an inn. The merchant glared at him. If you're not buying fruit, get lost. Why is he acting that rude? Is it some unspoken rule in cities that you have to buy fruit before you ask questions? Turan turned back and pointed. "How much is this?" The merchant answered. 2 dupit. Turan wondered. 2 dupit? The merchant smirked. "You look like an outsider, so you probably don't know what that is." "Paying with other coins is fine too." Turan asked, "Where can I find the inn?" The merchant pointed down the street. "Go straight down the road behind the cape shop, then turn left. You'll see it with a blue roof. That place is the biggest inn in the city." Turan found the large wooden sign. "Pub and Inn." The door opened and a blonde woman smiled. "Welcome to our inn. You're a handsome guest." Turan asked, "How much for a night?" Lena clasped her hands. 16 dupit. Turan handed her the payment. "I'll stay. More importantly, there's something I want to ask." Lena tilted her head. "Something you want to ask?" Turan asked. "Is there a monster nearby with a bounty on it?" Lena blinked. "A monster?" Turan thought to himself. "I need to kill monsters and absorb their mana, and he said hunting monsters would earn money too." Turan asked, "Why aren't you answering?" Lena laughed. "Sir, there's no such thing as free in this world." Lena pointed to a building. "City Hall?" Turan asked. "What's that?" Lena gasped. "You don't know about city halls? Wow, you really are from the countryside." City halls are where they handle various public affairs. The officials who work there are employed by the city's lord. It's probably closed since the sun's already down. If you want to find a monster bounty, go to City Hall tomorrow. "So, are you a monster hunter too?" Turan asked. "What's a monster hunter?" Lena explained. "People say that if an ordinary person hunts monsters, they become a wizard." Turan thought to himself. You want to become a wizard too, don't you? A hand slammed on the table. Of course, anyone who believes that kind of superstition is an idiot. Turan asked, superstition? Meaden grinned at him. It's a real fact that you can become a wizard by killing monsters. I saw it with my own eyes. Meaden laughed as the others cheered. Meaden, you're alive? Meaden stood tall. I told you, I'm not dying until I become a wizard. Meaden slapped Turan on the back. Oh, excuse me. Turan looked at him. More importantly, could I hear more about what you just said? The part where you can become a wizard by killing monsters. Meaden answered. Wizards get stronger when they hunt monsters. By the same principle, if an ordinary person kills a monster, they can become a wizard. The four of us are hunting monsters to become wizards. The hunters nodded. Yes, yes, Turan asked. Then does that mean someone among you is already a wizard? Meaden laughed. No way. In this city, there are only the Lord's wizard and 3 under him. But you said you hunt monsters? For that, your gear's way too shabby. Don't you have a weapon? Turan pulled his sling from his belt. I do. Meaden examined it. Oh, a sling? Judging by how worn it is, you've used it a lot. Turan replied. That I have. It's good for firing something about the size of an egg quickly. Meaden nodded. With that, you could easily hunt rabbit or fox monsters. Actually, we were just saying we wished we had one more shooter. Any interest in hunting with us? Turan smiled. No, thank you though. Turan went up to his room and lay down. There's no reason I have to hunt together with them. What a chaotic day. Turan thought to himself. I still can't believe I actually left the village. What's going to happen from here on? Sparks of blue mana danced around his fingers. A knock sounded at the door. Turan asked, who is it? Turan realized, even at an inn, I shouldn't let my guard down. Turan remembered Kiorn. That's right, a city isn't automatically safe. Turan thought to himself. I see. Kiorn's voice echoed in his mind. Never let your guard down. Turan thought to himself. Understood. Turan's hand glowed with magic as he touched the handle. Turan pulled the door open and narrowed his eyes. Turan was shocked. Lena? Lena stood there with a bashful smile. Were you asleep? I thought the room might be cold, so I came to keep you warm. Turan was confused. What? What do you mean by that? Lena blushed and started to untie her shirt. It's exactly what it sounds like. For a small amount of money, I'll do whatever you want. Turan looked at her with a blank stare. What if there's nothing I want? Lena stepped closer and placed a hand on his chest. Don't lie. I can tell just by looking at your face. Turan maintained a perfectly calm and detached expression. Lena looked back at him with a face of pure horror. Kiorn screamed in a sudden memory. Don't do it. You always have to be careful with inmaids and prostitutes in general. Most of them carry sexually transmitted diseases. We have strong disease resistance, so it's not a problem for us. But if you're careless, you could pass it on when you're with another woman. Don't let desire trap you into doing something you'll regret. Lena stomped down the stairs in a fury. Turan watched her leave. Turan thought to himself. So cities aren't easy to live in either. The fruit shop earlier, and now Lena too, to think they put a price on even small bits of information and conversation. Cities really are pretty cold-hearted. Turan lay in his bed and stared at the ceiling. A memory of Meaden's partner played in his mind. Boss, I've got something I'm curious about. Why were you trying to bring that guy along earlier? Honestly, he didn't look like he'd be much help. Meaden smiled as they walked up the stairs. That's right, he's got a cocky mouth, so he'd be perfect to use as monster bait. It's because he reminds me of myself when I was young. Hearing he hunts with a weapon like that made me worry. If he's at least next to me, I figured he might survive a little longer. The partner smiled. Seriously, you're too good-hearted, boss. Turan looked at the moonlight through the window. Turan thought to himself, well, maybe the city isn't all that cold-hearted after all. The next morning, Turan walked up to a large stone building. The official behind the desk looked up from his paperwork. Greetings. How may I help? Turan asked. Are you an official? The man replied. Then what do I look like? Turan spoke. I came to hunt monsters. The official blinked. Monsters? Turan remembered Kiorn's voice. The world won't be kind to you. Turan asked. Why is that? Kiorn answered. Because if you think about it the other way around, there's no reason it has to be kind. If you want people to treat you kindly, the method is simple. Reveal that you're a wizard. Then ordinary people will bow their heads. The official slid a piece of paper across the counter. You can't take it with you, so look and hand it back. Turan studied the drawing of a black bird. Is it a crow monster? The official scoffed. Does that look like a cat to you? It's unlikely, but if you kill a monster, bring its corpse into the city. If a wizard doesn't disperse the mana, it becomes a wraith. If you kill a monster and leave it abandoned, under city law, the maximum penalty is execution. Turan nodded. I know that. Turan thought to himself. I know what happens when a monster becomes a wraith. I can't repeat the same mistake. Turan asked, but don't knights hunt monsters? The official looked annoyed. Do you think they're people with time to spare? A knight's job is to maintain public order in the city. Hunting monsters outside the city? That's for thugs like you to handle. The official watched Turan walk out of the hall. He left. Another corpse is going to pile up outside the city. Turan walked into the forest. A dead blade crow lay on the floor of the city hall. The staff stared at it in shock. This can't be. How in the world? You brought it back this fast? Did you kill it alone? Turan answered, Indeed. How do I receive the bounty? The official scurried across the room. We have to give it to you, of course. Here it is. You must have worked hard, so please go get some rest. Turan took the heavy pouch of coins. Thank you, the official whispered to his colleague. That's incredible. The blade wings are still intact. Is it even possible to bring back a blade crow in this condition? Turan looked back at him. You're still here? Turan asked. Are there any other monsters worth hunting? The official was flabbergasted. What? Don't tell me. You can still hunt more? Lena placed several hot plates of meat and cheese on Turan's table. These are the most expensive items on our menu. I never dreamed that someone like you could defeat 30 monsters in just 3 days. You must have made a lot of money, right? Turan ate his dinner quietly. Money isn't my only goal. Turan thought to himself. More precisely, the goal is the monster's mana. Turan remembered his training in the forest as he absorbed green energy from a fallen beast. Turan thought to himself. Thanks to that, I definitely got stronger. Compared to when I met Kiorn, my mana has increased several-fold. Though, I can feel a limit. With only weak monsters' mana, it might be hard to get any stronger. Lena spoke up. Actually, Turan asked, What? Meaden walked up and leaned on the table. You didn't steal a bite of this, did you? You ate it all by yourself. You're skinny, but you really can eat. The cook laughed behind him. I made it for the first time in a while, so I'm happy you enjoyed it. Turan stood up and turned to leave. It was really delicious. Lena smiled. Then next time I'll make it even better. A rough hand grabbed Turan's shirt and yanked him back. You eating something tasty by yourself? You skinny runt. I heard you've been making a lot of money lately. How about giving some charity to your partners? Turan's fist slammed into the man's face. The man flew backward and hit the floor. The man groaned. Fuck, his partner shouted. Bastard. Turan looked at them with a cold gaze. Didn't you want some charity? The man lunged with a massive punch. Don't get cocky. Turan dodged the strike and delivered a powerful blow to the man's stomach. The man screamed in pain. Turan threw him across the room and into a wooden table. Turan slammed a stool down in front of the crawling man. Don't. Lena screamed at the top of her lungs. Fight in the inn. Meaden stood before Turan and bowed low. I sincerely apologize. I gave both of them a proper scolding. This will never happen again. We've been tight on money lately. I guess they got jealous when they saw you. You too. Apologize already. The two men bowed their heads. Sorry, Turan asked. Are things that hard? Meaden sighed. We've just been limited. In about 3 days, I don't think we'll be able to pay the room fee. But that's our problem. Turan pulled a pouch from his belt and handed it to him. Here. Meaden looked shocked. Why? Turan answered. This is repayment for the kindness you showed before when you said you were worried and tried to bring me along. Meaden gasped. How did you know? Turan smirked. There's no such thing as free. Give me some information. Meaden grinned widely. Information is what I'm best at. I'll tell you everything I know. The sun set over the city of Mage. Turan stood on the edge of the forest and looked at the sky. Turan thought to himself, this might be my last hunt in this city. Meaden gave me information about the next city, so it's about time I left for there. There was a lot more useful information than I expected, and Meaden really is a good person. He doesn't feel as seasoned as Kiorn, but that just makes him purer and kinder. Turan's eyes widened. Huh? This smell. Turan thought to himself. Please let my hunch be wrong. Turan sprinted through the trees. Turan found deep claw marks carved into a tree trunk. Turan stopped in a clearing. A man sat slumped against a tree in a pool of blood. Turan realized, this person. Isn't he from Meaden's group? Turan looked at the man's lifeless, wide-eyed face. Silver coins were scattered in the grass soaked with blood. Turan asked, what in the world happened, Meaden? The body of Meaden lay mangled on the ground. The dying man groaned as he leaned against a tree. Rah. Turan looked over. Rah. Rabbit. Turan repeated in disbelief. A rabbit? The massive horned beast with glowing red eyes chewed on a limb. Monster. The beast stood over the fallen hunters and continued to eat. Turan gasped. The monster lunged forward like a streak of lightning. Turan dodged the strike. It's fast. I almost got hit. The rabbit monster landed and glared with its crimson eyes. Turan swung his sling in a wide circle. Turan fired a stone with a loud crack. The beast swiped the air and shattered the projectile. Turan realized, this one's used to defending against thrown weapon techniques. The monster lunged again with its claws extended. Turan watched the beast speed past him. Turan gasped. The monster skidded across the dirt and turned around. The beast shrieked. Turan lunged forward to strike. Turan slammed a magical force into the beast. The monster was thrown against a tree with a heavy impact. Turan delivered another blow that shattered the wood. The monster screamed one last time. The rabbit monster lay dead on the forest floor. Blood dripped from its fur and pooled on the ground. Turan approached the lifeless creature. Turan reached out his hand and began to draw out the mana. A massive wave of green energy flowed into Turan's body. Turan thought to himself, the amount of mana being absorbed is different. It's more than that leopard monster I encountered the first time. I can't believe this. The dying companion looked up at him. You're a wizard. Turan answered calmly. Yeah, the man asked. Why are you hiding your identity? Turan looked at the three bodies. Do any of the four of you have a family that I can pass your belongings to? The man shed a tear and closed his eyes. No. Boss. Turan remembered his conversation with Medan at the inn. Medan smiled. There's a great city nearby called Aurum. It has a place called a library. Turan wondered. A library? Medan continued. They say it has thousands of books. The moment I say books, you finally look interested. Turan asked. Do I? Medan added. But I heard not just anyone can enter the library. Turan asked. Then how do I get in? Medan answered. Apparently, only wizards are allowed in. Turan thought to himself. I see. Turan spoke firmly. I've decided. Medan asked. What do you mean? Turan replied. I'm going to that great city you mentioned, Aurum. Turan stood before 3 simple stone graves in the forest. Turan spoke softly. Medan, I hope you're happy there. Turan walked away from the clearing. Turan joined a crowd of people in the city streets. Turan thought to himself. I'm almost embarrassed that I was shocked by the small city of Mage. The massive city of Aurum stretched out with towers and gardens. Turan waited in a long line at the main gate. Turan thought to himself. I didn't think there'd be this many people trying to enter the city. The guards checked each traveler carefully. Turan thought to himself. Are they screening for wanted criminals? As expected of a great city, it's got a more established system. A guard stepped in front of him. Halt. Turan wondered. Halt? What is it? The guard pointed at Turan's travel-worn cloak. No entry. I've never seen clothes that filthy. You should go over there and at least dust yourself off. Turan looked at a massive white tower reaching into the clouds. Turan thought to himself. So this is the library Medan talked about. It's overwhelming. It must have been built with magic, right? Turan approached the guards at the ornate gold and blue doors. Excuse me. The guard looked at him. Turan stated. I'm trying to enter here. The guard stepped forward and frowned. This is a library only wizards can enter. Turan replied. I'm a wizard. The guard laughed and gripped his sword. What? Do you want to die for impersonating a wizard? I can't believe I'm seeing a lunatic like you. There's no way someone like you is a wizard. Turan held up his hand. Turan remembered Korn's teaching. Wizards can recognize each other. By sensing the other's mana, they can even tell whether the other person is stronger than them. Turan's eyes glowed with a terrifying light. Turan released a massive burst of red mana. The guard groaned in pain and clutched his chest. Turan asked, Are you all right? The guard collapsed to the floor and trembled. I am fine, the guard thought to himself. He's no ordinary wizard. This man is at least noble class or higher. The guard stood up and bowed deeply. I am Kenya, a knight of House Voltas. Kenya asked, May I ask which house you're from? Turan replied, Do I have to say to enter? Kenya answered, No. To use the library, you need permission from the Master of Voltas. Turan wondered, Meaning? Kenya explained, I'll contact House Voltas. Turan sighed. All right. Turan thought to himself. I thought this be a simple process. Several maids scrubbed Turan's back in a luxury bath. Turan thought to himself. How did this happen? Turan spoke. Stop. The maid bowed. Why yes, sir. Turan asked. Is it a problem if I wash by myself? The maids looked at each other with concern. If we fail to properly attend to an esteemed guest, we'll be punished. Turan sighed. Do what you want. The maids smiled. Thank you. The large mansion stood under a clear blue sky. The maid clasped her hands together. Wow. Amazing. Turan asked. What? The maid blushed and covered her mouth. Ah. Turan asked. Is there something on my face? Turan adjusted his fine white and gold robes. The maid bowed. I think I momentarily lost myself because of your beauty, esteemed one. Please forgive me. Turan smiled. There's nothing to forgive. The maid whispered. Please don't speak to us so casually. Turan looked at his reflection. Wow. What's this? A woman with long pink hair walked into the room. She smirked at Turan. So you're the guest who showed up looking like a beggar? She walked past the maids. After washing you up and dressing you, you look like a prince. The butler whispered. Young lady, you shouldn't say that, Turan stated. I'm Turan. The woman smiled. I'm Azella. Azella asked. What house? Turan answered. For personal reasons, it's difficult to say. Azella hummed. Is that so? That's a shame. Azella thought to herself. Hiding who he is? Then maybe I'll play a little prank. Azella unleashed a massive explosion of golden fire. Azella grinned wickedly. Show me your mana. Turan stared at her through the intense heat. Turan's eyes glowed with an azure light. A massive burst of blue energy erupted from his body and pushed the flames back. The maids screamed in terror. The intense magical pressure shook the walls of the luxury room. Turan exhaled a long breath. Phew. Azella watched him with a wide smile. Wow. Haha. She clenched her gloved hands and stepped closer. Hey, want to marry me? Turan blinked in confusion. Azella burst into a loud laugh. What's with that reaction? It was just a joke. She leaned in with a mischievous glint in her eyes. Young miss. Still, think about it once. The seat next to me is empty right now. Turan watched her walk away with the butler and maids. Turan looked at his trembling hand. Turan thought to himself. She has mana on par with mine at the very least. Is this level normal? A gold crest hung on the wall of the study. Rug Valtas sat behind a massive wooden desk. Welcome, young noble. You already know my name, yes? Turan placed a hand on his chest. I'm Turan. Rug looked at his papers. Turan? So, you want to use the library? A lot of people come here after hearing strange rumors, so I'll say this in advance. There isn't any amazing ancient magic in the library, nor some secret method to increase your mana. Turan stood calmly. I'm fine with that. I never wanted anything like that. Rug leaned back in his chair. If you still want it, I won't stop you. In any case, there's nothing inside that counts as confidential information related to our house. It's gotten late today, so rest and come back tomorrow. Is that acceptable? Turan bowed. I won't forget your kindness. The sun rose over the tall stone tower. The guards at the entrance bowed as the heavy doors opened. Your entry pass has been confirmed, esteemed guest. Welcome to the Sky Library. Turan walked inside and looked up in awe. Wow. A massive spiral staircase reached up into the darkness and was surrounded by thousands of books. Turan walked past the long wooden tables. So this is the library. A small girl in white robes skipped forward and waved a book. Nice to meet you, Turan. I'm the librarian here. By order of the Lord, I'll explain the rules for using this place. The rules are simple. Turan thought to himself. A little kid is the librarian? The girl held up a finger. First rule. If you damage anything, you compensate. Second rule. No taking books out. She stepped close and poked him in the chest. Oh, and while you're using the library, I'll be watching you the whole time. Turan sighed. All right, but when I'm reading, could you stand a little farther away? I feel uncomfortable. Turan walked between the towering shelves. If you're a librarian, you've read the books here too, right? The girl sat on a table. Yes. If you need something, finding it for you is what I'm best at. What do you want? Romance? History? Or since you're young, something erotic? Turan kept a straight face. I want to learn basic common sense about the world. The girl looked surprised. She gestured to the massive stacks on the floor. A lot of the books here are hundreds of years old, so they won't really suit your needs. But this section might help a little. Turan took a thick volume. Thank you. The girl smiled. You're welcome. Turan opened the heavy cover and began to read. So this is what a book is. Turan turned the pages and grew excited. It's amazing. Turan repeated the same routine every day, reading in the library. Now he came to understand this world's geography, its different races, the etiquette of wizards, how various items were manufactured and processed, and even monsters and relics from the era of the Old Empire. With each piece of knowledge he accumulated, his world, something that was once nothing but an unknown space, grew clearer and more vivid to him. Rug Valtas rested his chin on his hand. So you really have been making excellent use of the library. Turan answered. Yes. Rug looked serious. I trust you understand that, separate from treating you as a noble, allowing you to use the library is an act of goodwill. I would like to receive payment for that goodwill. Turan replied. Please tell me what you need. Rug explained. A monster has appeared north of Aurum and has been attacking travelers. Turan asked. Do you want me to hunt it? Rug rubbed his temple. 4 knights who went to subjugate it never returned. They were eaten. It seems a noble will have to step in personally, but our house can only mobilize 2 people at the moment. Please tell me what you need. Turan stood up. Very well. Turan thought to himself. Protecting people is what a wizard ought to do. However, something feels off. Aren't wizards usually the type who don't get involved in things like this? Rug continued. The northern road they've blocked is an important trade route for Aurum. It's already been blocked for 10 days, so we have to open it quickly. Turan smirked as he walked away. Turan thought to himself. 10 days ago, that was before I even arrived in Aurum. So that's why he let me use the library so readily. The group walked through the heavy city gates. Azella stretched her arms over her head. Father really is something else. To think he'd even mobilize a guest for a monster hunt. Marvin Valtez looked at her. Were we that unreliable? Azella turned around and shrugged. Oh, I'm not blaming you. I'm just saying Father is making a huge fuss. Marvin smiled. Isn't calling the Lord fussy a bit much, young miss? Azella dismissed him. Drop it. Marvin shook his fist in frustration. What? Marvin turned to Turan and bowed. This is our first time meeting properly, isn't it? I'm Marvin Valtez. I look forward to working with you. Turan replied. Likewise. Azella kicked a stone on the path. Let's finish this quickly and go back to rest. Marvin leaned toward Turan. Turan, are you interested in my big sister by any chance? Turan looked surprised. Pardon? No. Marvin beamed. That's a relief. A knight held up his hand as they reached a clearing. Stop, stop. The group stood before the wreckage of a wooden cart and scattered supplies. Marvin asked, is that the creature? The knight knelt by the debris. Probably. We forbade anyone from going north from our side, so they must have come south and got attacked then. Turan looked at a massive handprint burned into a wooden plank. Turan stated, it's a monkey. Marvin asked, a monkey? Turan pointed. Look at the handprint here. It looks like it attacked the peddlers and went back into the forest. If we find the trail and pursue it, we should be able to find it. Azella crossed her arms. Pursue it. I can barely use that kind of magic. Marvin, what about you? Marvin answered, me neither. Is there a knight who can? Turan knelt by the wreckage and touched the ground. I'll try looking. Azella asked. Oh, are you from that bloodline? Turan answered, I use it a lot, so I'm used to it. Turan focused his mana and his eyes flashed. Search. A blue energy trail appeared and led into the deep woods. Turan pointed. This way. They followed the trail to a shallow river. Turan stopped and looked at the water. It stops here. Looks like it washed its body. Azella was skeptical. You're saying a mere beast did that to avoid being tracked? Turan stood by the stream. Maybe it just washed because it wanted to. Turan sniffed the air and sensed a sudden movement above them. Turan screamed, behind you. A massive monkey monster shrieked as it leapt from the trees. The beast loomed over the group with glowing red eyes. The lead knight shouted in panic. Dodge! The monkey lunged with its claws and blood sprayed as it struck the soldiers. They screamed in agony and were thrown through the air. Turan looked at the carnage. Turan thought to himself, Mother wasn't wrong. Azella screamed at the remaining men. Attack! The knights rushed forward with their blades drawn. The monkey shrieked and leapt over them. It's running. Chase it! Marvin cursed. Damn it, it's too fast. We're losing it. Turan watched the beast flee through the dense trees. Turan swung his sling in a fast circle. A massive beam of blue energy fired from the weapon and lit up the forest. The projectile tore through the air and struck the monkey in the back of the head. The monster shrieked in agony as it was slammed into the earth. Marvin and Azella stared in disbelief at the precision of the strike, but Turan simply walked toward them with a calm expression while the monster groaned in its final moments. Standing over the fallen beast, Azella looked down with cold determination and commanded it to die as she unleashed her power. A massive, roaring snake made of golden flames erupted from her hand, coiling around the monster and consuming it in a violent explosion that scorched the entire clearing. Turan observed the destruction, realizing that he was seeing the true bloodline ability of the House Valtez pyromaniacs. As the smoke cleared and the heat subsided, the group stood amidst the charred remains. Marvin breathed a sigh of relief that it was over, while Azella noted with a smirk that she had gotten chills for a second when the rock was flying toward them. Marvin asked if she had been scared, prompting her to snap back and tell him to shut up, claiming he was the one who had screamed like a little girl. While Marvin stuttered in defense, the knights nearby groaned in pain as they tended to their wounds. One soldier clutched his arm, fearing it was broken, while others struggled to stop the bleeding from head wounds. Turan walked through the carnage, thinking that the situation was a mess, but they were lucky there were no casualties. He looked at the nobles and realized that while their bodies were made several times tougher by their mana, they still didn't hesitate to use weaker people as shields. Marvin interrupted his thoughts, asking what was on his mind, but Turan simply dismissed it as nothing. Changing the subject, Marvin welcomed Turan and invited him to join them in absorbing the monster's mana. Standing over the massive shadow of the beast, Turan reached out his hand and began the process. He noted that even if multiple people absorbed the mana at once, the degree of enhancement didn't seem to be reduced. Marvin and Azella soon stepped back, panting from the strain and complaining that they had already reached their crappy growth limits. They were shocked to see Turan continue, marveling that the Lord had been right to send him along. Marvin watched the surging green energy, thinking that Turan's spell proficiency and mana capacity already rivaled his own, yet the young man had clearly not reached his limit. As the sun set and turned the sky into a deep orange, the group began their walk back to the massive city gates. Marvin thanked Turan, noting that they never would have defeated the beast without his tracking and that final, spectacular hit. Turan modestly replied that it wasn't anything spectacular, though he admitted he regretted letting the monster get the first strike. He explained to the others that a monster's abilities often awakened based on their external traits, and since the monkey had such massive eyes, it had likely gained the ability to see through the dense forest. Azella was impressed by his quick deductions, but Turan credited his knowledge to the monster encyclopedia he had found in the library. Marvin laughed, calling the library a stuffy place that no one ever visited, mentioning that he had once left without finishing half a book because it was too difficult. Turan suggested that next time they should just ask the librarian for easier books, which confused Azella. She asked if there was even such a person, and Turan looked at her in silence, realizing that the people of the house didn't even know she existed. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Turan returned to the tall stone tower. The librarian skipped toward him with a wide smile, welcoming him back. Turan realized he had been careless, forgetting that in this city, commoners and knights only ever addressed nobles as esteemed ones, never by their actual names. Looking at the girl, he thought that her playful appearance didn't exactly scream, librarian. When he asked how she knew his name, she looked up with a gasp and then smirked, asking if he was only noticing her awareness now. She explained that she had learned it from his permit and that as long as he was within the walls of the library, her gaze reached everywhere. Turan asked how he should address her, but she revealed she didn't really have a name and playfully suggested he call her, my love. Turan flatly told her he would just stick with librarian, causing her to complain that he was too stiff and that it was awkward when he suddenly became polite after using her help for days. Turan ignored her complaints, asking if she was a wizard from the old empire, but she explained that she wasn't a person to begin with. Floating through the air, she described herself as a spirit that inhabited something neither alive nor dead, meaning she was the library itself. She noted that her physical form was just for comfortable communication and usually reflected the user's preference, though she teased that his preferences were quite strange. Turan poked her side to test her claims, causing her to jump and ask where he thought he was touching. She grew annoyed, explaining that it was frustrating she couldn't exert power on intruders, or she would have punished everyone who stole books. She revealed that House Valtas didn't know she existed because no one had the qualifications to perceive her until now. She claimed that her creator had made it so only those with a complete bloodline could see her, making their meeting almost romantic. Turan ignored the flirtation and asked about his own bloodline. When he revealed he was an orphan, the librarian offered to check it for him. He grew nervous as she lunged at him, but then realized it didn't hurt as she entered his body to examine his mana. She announced that they were now connected and explained that the major parts of his power came from the pursuer and hunter bloodlines of House Sahar. She then spotted something else, noting that his blood was mixed and that he had another locked bloodline that would open naturally as he grew stronger. Turan stood in the quiet library, thinking of his mother and how she had been far too polite and educated for a commoner. He wondered if she was a descendant of a noble whose bloodline had been too diluted to hold mana. He thanked the librarian for the information, though she pouted and asked him to stay for another month. For the next several weeks, Turan didn't read alone, instead asking the spirit for explanations. She taught him about things he had never seen, like invisible microorganisms that caused disease and decay. She showed him how to shape water in the air like a lens to see them directly. He grasped basic scientific principles including the refraction of light, the generation of heat through friction, and the biology of how living things heal. Turan experimented by using his mana to make an apple rot into dust instantly, realizing that understanding the underlying principles allowed him to use far less mana than conventional magic. He wondered if the powerful houses monopolized this knowledge to maintain their edge, and the librarian agreed, noting that human knowledge seemed to be dropping over time. Eventually, the day came for Turan to depart. He told the spirit it was time for him to leave as the Lord had been dropping hints, causing her to scream and tackle him, begging to be taken along. When he asked if she could even leave the tower, she admitted she couldn't and asked him to stay instead. Turan declined, but promised to come visit from time to time. The spirit told him to come or not as he pleased, though she looked sad as he walked toward the door. Turan looked back one last time, telling her not to worry because there were still many books he hadn't finished. He walked out of the city gates under a bright sky, checking the map he had obtained. He saw that the Enril Desert, the base of the Zahar family, lay to the east of Orum. With a determined smile, Turan set off toward the horizon, intent on finding the truth about his parents. Turan walked along a dirt path through the dense forest. But there's no rush. If the clues were going to disappear, they would have vanished sometime during these 18 years. And if they're still there, they won't disappear just because I arrive a little later. Turan heard a loud sound in the distance. The horse bared its teeth and neighed. Turan hid behind the green bushes and peeked out. The horse stood in the middle of a clearing. Turan noticed the equipment on its back. A saddle? He wasn't attacked by a monster. The monster is actually protecting him? The dark elf growled. Damned demon. How can a mere beast be this strong? Turan stared at the intruders. The dark elf yelled. Try to find an opening. The other elf shouted. Easy for you to say. Turan looked at their purple skin. Dark elves? The elf's hand glowed with a sinister purple light. Turan thought to himself. It's the necromancy of the dark elves that I saw in a book. The horse neighed loudly as the elf lunged. Turan watched from the shadows. Should I help? But it could be that the fallen man attacked the dark elves first. The dark elf bit into a human arm and blood dripped from his mouth. Whose hand is this? Give me one, too. The second elf answered. Eat your own. You must have grabbed one for yourself, right? Turan narrowed his eyes. So they really were cannibals. Turan stood up and focused his mana. Concealment. The dark elf looked at the sky as the wind whistled. The ones I killed were all men, so they were way too hairy. A blue flash of light cut through the air and blood sprayed across the trees. The elf gasped in surprise. Huh. A dark pool of energy swirled on the ground. The dark elf shrieked in rage. Gather around. A spectral wolf and bull materialized from the shadows and charged. Turan swung his sling and fired a stone. A beam of blue magic tore through the air. The projectile struck the elf with a heavy thud. The elf screamed. Who is this bastard? Show yourself. The dark elf realized. Concealment? The elf bared his sharp teeth. Let's see if you can still hide like that. The area was engulfed in a golden shockwave. Turan smirked as he appeared. The elf lunged forward. Found you. You damned demon. Turan braced himself. The elf shouted. Kill him. Turan raised his palm and a massive ball of fire exploded. A wall of flames scorched the forest. Turan thought to himself. Quick. It's a good thing I killed one of them earlier. Turan looked down. Ugh. The spectral fox bit into his arm. Turan kicked the creature away. The elf struck Turan with a powerful blow. Turan coughed up blood. The elf laughed maniacally. Serves you right. How dare you kill my kin? You'll be begging for death. The red horse charged forward and trampled the elf under its hooves. The elf groaned in pain. Help, quickly. The horse stood in front of Turan and Aziz. The elf crawled through the dirt. How dare you humiliate me like this? I'm going to kill you. A massive blue beam of energy pierced the elf's chest. The elf collapsed as blood splattered the grass. I'm really going to die. The horse nudged Turan's head. Turan petted the animal's face. Right, thank you. Aziz opened his eyes and looked around. Aziz jumped to his feet and screamed. You Turan sat by the campfire. You're awake? Aziz asked. Who are you? Turan explained. I saw you being attacked by dark elves and saved you. Aziz sighed in relief. The horse nudged Aziz's shoulder. Tilly. Turan smiled. She's quite smart. She even understands that she needs to protect her owner and move to a safer location. Aziz bowed his head. I thank you for the grace of saving me. I am Aziz, of the Burke family. Turan answered. I'm Turan. Turan asked. By any chance, is there a reason for the conflict with the dark elves? Aziz looked saddened. A reason? No, none. I was on a journey with my servants when we were suddenly attacked without provocation. I'd heard that other races were violent, but I didn't imagine it would be to this extent. Damn it. Aziz covered his face. I'm sorry, the people I lost today were very precious to me. Turan asked. Were they your family? Aziz answered. They were the knights and servants who came on this journey with me. They practically raised me since I was a child. Turan watched him closely. Turan thought to himself. He's a good person. Turan asked. How many dark elves attacked you? Turan answered. I killed 2. Turan thought to himself. That was probably all of them. Turan closed his eyes. Explore. A pulse of blue mana swept through the trees. Turan thought to himself. Right, there really aren't any more dark elves around. Aziz spoke. Master Turan, do you happen to have any urgent business right now? Turan answered. I'm also on a journey. Aziz looked surprised. Even with such strength, you're still traveling alone? Are you perhaps the son of a great family? But why are you alone? Turan shrugged. It's hard to explain, and I'm not actually that strong. I ambushed one and killed him, then struggled against the other. I only managed to win with the help of that red horse. Turan's body radiated a blue aura. Aziz's body glowed with an orange flame. Turan thought to himself. Isn't he quite strong? If I hadn't absorbed the dark elf's mana, I'd be even weaker. Aziz thought to himself. He really isn't at the level to face 2 necromancers. Does he have great combat instincts or a special bloodline? But why would someone like that be alone? Aziz looked at Turan. If you don't have a set destination, may I invite you to our Burke family? I will repay the debt of you saving my life and for escorting me safely back to my family. Turan asked. Payment? Aziz smiled and clenched his fist. We, the Burke family, are vassals of the great house of Arabian in the north. And we come from a lineage of enchantment artisans who have created magic artifacts for generations. We will craft a magic artifact perfectly suited for you. Turan and Aziz stood in the quiet forest near a small stone grave. Aziz spoke softly. Looks like it's finally over. In my heart, I wanted to send everyone back to their homeland, but that probably wouldn't have been possible, right? Aziz turned to his companion. Thank you, Sir Turan. Turan asked. For what, exactly? Aziz smiled. For not laughing at me. A noble crying over the sacrifice of his subordinates. It must look pathetic. Turan questioned. And why would that be pathetic? Aziz explained. Because that's what I was taught by my father since I was young. Those who die in a just battle will reside in the celestial palace with the gods, so mourning them would be considered weakness. A true noble should know how to move forward past sacrifices, but if strength means not grieving the death of family, then I guess I'll never be strong. Turan looked at him kindly. That's not weakness, that's kindness. Aziz felt a weight lift from his shoulders. By the way, since we decided to travel together, how about we talk more casually from now on? We don't seem that far apart in age anyway. Turan agreed. Ah, well, if you say so. Aziz beamed with joy. That's right. I'm counting on you from now on, friend. Aziz reached out his hand for a shake. Turan looked at the gesture for a moment. Turan thought to himself, friend. Their hands met in a firm grip. I'm counting on you too. The two travelers stopped for a break as the horse grazed nearby. Aziz gestured to a sturdy wooden chest. How about we take a short break? Turan looked at the box. What's that? Aziz opened the lid. A refrigerated box. I packed plenty of food in it back in the last city. Turan looked at the fresh supplies. The inside stays cold all the time? Aziz nodded. Yeah, thanks to that, food lasts about a week without any issues. And if it gets too cold, you can just heat it up. Aziz pulled out several items. This one is a magic item that releases water when you press the button. And this is a magic item that creates shelter when you gather wood. A magic item that sounds an alarm if someone approaches. Aziz pulled at the fabric of his shirt. And what I'm wearing right now is a magic item with a self-cleaning function. Turan thought to himself, magic items, aren't they supposed to be rare? This is amazing. Just this outfit alone would be enough to repay my life. Aziz laughed. Things like this aren't worth as much as a life. I promise I'll reward you with something much better when we return to my home. And if the elders don't allow it, I'll make it happen myself. Aziz looked at Turan with admiration. Besides, nothing compares to what you can do. I can't even remember how many types of magic I've seen you use during our journey. From animal manipulation, freezing, levitation, controlling liquids, enhancement, light emission, restriction, instant death, terrain manipulation, even lightning strikes. Have you spent your entire life just practicing magic? Or do you have some kind of bloodline ability? Something that lets you learn any magic you want? Turan looked away. Turan thought to himself. It just happens. Turan spoke firmly. We agreed you wouldn't pry into my family background. Aziz waved his hands dismissively. No, I was just joking. There's no way such an absurd bloodline ability could exist. Anyway, how old are you? Your face looks like you haven't even hit 30 yet. Don't tell me you're like 80? Turan answered calmly. I've got about a month left until I turn 19. Aziz stopped in his tracks and gasped. I turned 43 this year. Turan stared at him in disbelief. Aziz sighed. Well, a difference of 24 years isn't that big of a deal for us. Man, I should have realized. When you said you defeated 2 necromancers with that level of magic power. Who would have thought there were 2 geniuses like that in the world? Turan asked. 2? Aziz explained. Yeah, not quite your level. Or maybe close. After all, that person's bloodline is something else. Anyway, I know another genius around your age. She's my second cousin. Turan asked. Could you ask that person to make a magic item for me? Aziz shook his head. No, she's not from my direct line, she's from the main family. Turan wondered. If it's the main family, then could it be? Aziz nodded. Exactly. The Princess of Arabian. She might become the head of the great lineage in the future. Their boots crunched on the trail as the sun set. Aziz continued his explanation. Unlike ordinary mage families, the leader of a great lineage can't easily pass the position to their own biological child because in a great lineage, there are dozens of relatives of the same generation. And among them, someone stronger than the patriarch's child always emerges. Even so, among the patriarch's children, she was born the one with the greatest talent, Mage. In just 10 years after awakening her magic, Mage mastered Arabian's bloodline magic and every type of combat magic. As a result, with all kinds of support, even though she's only 21 now, her magical power isn't much different from the core members of the family. Turan asked, with that level of power at her age, did her family give her some special support for the future? Aziz answered, exactly. She even inherited our great-uncle's magic power when he passed away. Well, of course, we gotta share too. Turan looked toward the horizon. Turan thought to himself, there's definitely a reason great lineages stand at the top. Aziz pointed forward, but it looks like we're finally arriving. Turan watched the wind blow through the golden fields. The plains of Decane, it's the central territory of Arabian. They reached a massive white fortress in Zabilan, territory of the Burke family. A woman in fine clothes ran out of the castle. Aziz, my son, what happened? Aziz ran to her and embraced her. Mother. The mother wept with joy. Turan watched from a distance. The father stood tall in a long gray coat. Aziz, mind your dignity. At the very least, address her as Madam. Aziz stepped back. I don't think that's the main issue. I apologize. This is Turan, a new friend I met in the south. He's the benefactor who risked his life to save me when I was on the brink of death. If it weren't for him, I wouldn't have made it back home alive. The mother grabbed Aziz's hands. Your journey shouldn't have been this dangerous. What exactly happened? Aziz answered, we were attacked by dark elf necromancers. The mother shouted in a rage. Dark elves? Those filthy creatures dared target my son? If I don't personally lead an army to tear them apart, the father placed a hand on her shoulder. Please calm down, my lady. People are watching. The father turned his gaze to Turan. Then, may I ask which family our benefactor belongs to? Turan looked away. That's hard to say. The father asked. Hard? Turan replied. Yes. To be honest, it's more accurate to say I don't really know. I was born to a commoner mother, and I don't know who my father is. Aziz looked shocked. What? You never told me that. Turan spoke dismissively. It's not exactly something to be proud of. The mother grew serious. I see. So your name is Turan, and you belong to no known family. Since you saved the child who is the treasure of our house. As the matriarch of the Burke family, I will pay the reward you deserve. However, it would be difficult to offer you a room in our mansion. So instead, I'll arrange for you to stay at the finest lodging in the city. Aziz protested loudly. What are you saying, madam? How can you not receive into our home the benefactor who saved me? The mother explained calmly. Under normal circumstances, it would be fine, but right now we have an important guest staying with us. No matter how much of a benefactor he is, we cannot allow someone of unknown identity inside. Please understand. A voice echoed from the hallway. If it's because of me, you don't need to do that, Aunt. The group looked toward the entrance. I don't think someone who saved Aziz would suddenly try to assassinate me. A woman in a long black dress stood in the doorway. Miza? Aziz asked. What are you doing here all of a sudden? Turan watched her walk past him. Turan thought to himself. That woman is the Princess of Arabian. She looks more like a corpse than a princess. Miza spoke coldly. It hasn't been long since I was nearly assassinated by those Sahar vermin. So I came here to hide. Turan looked surprised. An assassination attempt in the main house? With such tight defenses, don't tell me. Miza nodded. Yes, there's probably a traitor inside. It's not like there are only 1 or 2 people in the family who dislike me. Anyway, I'm tired. I'll retire first. Good night, everyone. The mother bowed her head. Well, prepare the second best guest room for Lord Turan. Turan woke up the next morning in a grand canopy bed. Morning light flooded the luxury room. Turan walked through the quiet mansion hallways. Aziz waved to him from a distance. Turan, you're up early again, huh? What are you doing alone in the hallway? Turan pointed to a glowing fixture on the wall. That caught my attention. Aziz walked up beside him. That? Oh, a magic lamp? We usually make one of those when we train enchantment magic as kids. Want one? There are plenty left in storage. Turan looked away. That's a bit too much. A massive strike of lightning hit outside. The house shook from the impact. Turan gasped. Aziz looked out the window. Looks like Miza is training magic. Always so diligent. Turan asked. That's Arabian's bloodline magic, right? Aziz answered. Yeah, the storm lineage. They watched massive golden bolts tear through the sky. I've never hated my blood, but that still makes me a little jealous. She really looks like a god. Turan thought to himself. I got curious. Just how strong is the next generation heir of Arabian? Aziz asked. Want to go take a look? Turan hesitated. I'm curious, but I don't think it'd be a good idea for a suspicious outsider like me to approach. Aziz grabbed his arm. So what? It's not like you're an assassin. I'll vouch for you. To be honest, I'm curious too. Between you and Miza, who's stronger? Turan smirked. I guess that's your real reason for bringing me. Aziz grinned. Honestly, a few years ago, I trained with Miza, and it's been bothering me ever since. I want to see her frustrated at least once. They reached the outdoor training grounds. Aziz shouted, Hey, Miza! Miza turned around. Aziz? And the one next to you is? Turan introduced himself. I'm Turan, my lady. Maiza nodded. Ah, right. Turan, that was your name. So, what brings you two here all of a sudden? Aziz stepped forward. Nothing much. We saw you training magic and wanted to join in. We've done this before, remember? Maiza smiled mockingly. Oh, I remember. Back then, you struggled for an entire week, and I mastered it in 2 tries. You ran off crying. Aziz yelled. Hey! Turan chuckled quietly. Aziz glared at him. Sorry, Aziz grumbled. You're laughing at me too? Aziz turned to Maiza. Anyway, this Turan here is easily one of the most talented magic users I've ever seen. He's ridiculously talented, a complete monster. How about you two fight? Maiza looked at Turan with a cold gaze. Fight? Turan stared back at her in silence. Maiza's eye glowed with blue lightning as magic surged around her face. Maiza looked at the young man with a cold gaze. I'm sorry to say this, but it looks like it'd be a bit difficult for him to duel me. Turan stared back in silence. Aziz placed a hand on Turan's shoulder. No, in terms of magical power, he certainly would be no match for you. What's truly incredible about this guy is his ability to learn magic. Turan is a genius unlike any I have seen in my entire life. Even you, Maiza, probably don't reach that level, right? Maiza narrowed her eyes. Since you are praising him so much, let's see what he is capable of. How about we each show a magic that the other probably doesn't know? And whoever can perform it faster wins. Turan looked up at the sky. Aziz smiled and looked at his cousin. It's a good method. What do you think, Maiza? Maiza spoke in a flat tone. Fine. I heard that Turan doesn't even know the magic of his own bloodline? It would be unfair if I used my innate magic. So let's leave that out. I'll start first. Maiza tapped her foot on the ground. Turan and Aziz looked confused. A small sprout emerged from the stone floor. The plant grew rapidly into thick green vines. Aziz gasped in surprise. The vines wrapped around Aziz and lifted him into the air. Aziz screamed in terror. Wait! Maiza! Maiza looked up at him with a dead expression. It's plant creation and manipulation magic. Can you do it? Aziz kicked his legs as he was spun around. Ah! Let me go! I'm getting dizzy! Maiza watched him spin. Stay like that for a moment. It's fun. Turan watched the magic closely. Turan thought to himself. Fire creation magic is merely the manifestation of the phenomenon of burning, and water creation magic is simply the act of extracting invisible moisture from the air. Turan knelt and placed his palm on the floor. Grow. Turan thought to himself. Those vines are the same way. It's about forcing seeds already planted in the ground to sprout rapidly. In other words, it isn't creation, but rather. Turan focused his mana. Growth. Massive blue vines erupted from the ground and tangled with the golden ones. Maiza stared in shock. Aziz hung upside down and blinked. Oh, Maiza spoke calmly. Given that you told it to grow, it seems you've independently discovered the true nature of this magic. Have you happened to see it somewhere before? Turan answered. It's my first time. Maiza looked away. HMPH. The things Aziz said today actually turned out to be right for once. How rare. Aziz groaned as he was lowered to the ground. Oh. Maiza looked at Turan. Now it's your turn to propose the challenge. Let's see what you can do. Turan stood in silence. Turan thought to himself. Using Zahar's bloodline magic would be suicidal. Turan's eyes narrowed as he noticed something in the bushes. Turan reached out his hand toward the greenery. The leaves rustled. A large brown rat scurried onto the stone path. Maiza asked, Animal control? Is that it? Turan picked up the rat. Hardly. This little guy here is just the ingredient. Turan's eye glowed with intense blue mana. The rat shrieked in pain as blue energy enveloped its body. The animal withered and turned into a mummified corpse within seconds. Maiza's eyes widened. Turan held the dead rat by its tail. Done. Maiza looked at the remains. Very well. Maiza raised her hand. Now it's my turn. Another rat scurried along the base of the wall. Maiza grabbed the animal. The rat squealed as Maiza concentrated her mana. Maiza thought to herself. How did he do that, anyway? This isn't ordinary magic. Aziz looked at the rat and winced. No. Why use that kind of magic? It's disgusting. Turan shrugged. It was just the first thing that came to mind. Turan thought to himself. I already suspected as much, but does even a great family like the Arabians not know this well? Aziz looked at Maiza. It seems it's not working, Maiza. Why don't we give the victory to Turan? Maiza shouted in a rage. Shut up. Do you think I can't do this? Maiza gripped the rat until her knuckles turned white. The narration explained. When using magic, the causality factor is an extremely complex element. If the phenomenon one intends to cause is something natural, if the user clearly recognizes the cause of the magical phenomenon, if the amount of mana consumed is adequate to trigger such a phenomenon, among these, the capacity to perceive the cause of the phenomenon is. Maiza gritted her teeth. A little more, the narration continued. an important factor that simultaneously influences the success rate of the magic and the mana consumption. And one of the ways to compensate for the lack of causality when using magic is to invest a large amount of mana, filling the inefficiency with volume. Mage screamed at the animal. Rot, rot, rot while you are still alive. The rat shrieked in agony as it was consumed by mana. The animal died and its body crumbled into pieces. Aziz smiled. Ah, it worked, didn't it? Turan watched in silence. Mage panted heavily and trembled. I did it, it worked. I really did it. Mage stood weakly as sweat dripped from her face. Mage's eyes rolled back. Mage collapsed onto the stone floor. Aziz rushed to her side. Mage, what happened? Open your eyes. Turan observed her still form. Turan thought to himself, what could be the reason? Did she use too much mana? But people don't usually faint just from depleting mana. At most, she should suffer from exhaustion, since she lost even the strength needed to support her own body. Turan looked at her hands. Turan realized, I see, that's it. Turan lifted Mage into his arms. Is there no mage with a healing bloodline around here? Aziz looked desperate. There isn't, Turan commanded. Then have them bring water and salt to this young lady's room. And bring the adults as well. Turan walked toward the mansion. Turan thought to himself, she is so light that I almost confuse her for a lamb rather than a person. Even the mana she used to barely sustain a body that, to begin with, shouldn't even be able to stand, has been exhausted. The sun shone brightly over the grand estate. Mage groaned in her sleep. Oh, the mother screamed in a panic. Mage, are you all right? Are you conscious? Mage opened her eyes and looked at the ornate ceiling. Why am I here? The mother leaned over her. Aziz told me that you suddenly fainted while training magic with the guest. Is that true? Mage remained silent. The mother looked concerned. Did that man happen to do something to you? For now, let's observe and see. Mage sat up and clutched her head. No, it's not his fault. It was just a small mistake on my part, that's all. Please, everyone leave. My head is throbbing. The mother placed a bowl on the bedside table. I made some soup for you. I know you don't eat because of magic, but you need to think about your health too. The mother walked toward the door. I'll leave it here. Try to eat at least a little. Mage sat alone in the large, quiet room. Mage looked at the steam rising from the bowl. Mage took a spoonful of the liquid. Mage ate the soup in silence. Mage gasped and her eyes widened in fear. A dark vision of the past appeared. People with hollow eyes reached out in the rain. Please, save us, Mage. If it's you, you can do this. A young girl cried out in the darkness. This hurts a lot, sister. Mage gagged and vomited. Blair. The ceramic bowl shattered against the floor. Mage gripped the silk sheets with a shaking hand. Mage buried her face in her hands and sobbed. Bright light filled the hallway. Turan stood in a massive stone chamber. A tall statue of a winged goddess loomed in the center. The text labeled the room. Burke Family Basement, Temple of the Limping Goddess. The guard gripped the hilt of his sword. Both the doors and the walls are solid, without a single crack, like muscles trained for hundreds of years. Hiram Berg drew his blade with a sharp sound. Give up on any thought of trying to break this and leave. Turan answered calmly. Yes, I understand. Turan thought to himself. I wasn't even thinking about that. Hiram spoke firmly. It is very solid. Turan replied. Yes. Hiram added. Extremely. Hiram stared at Turan with a serious expression. Turan thought to himself. Is he bragging? Hiram swung his sword through the air. Hiram moved with incredible speed and precision. Turan watched the training session. What are you doing? Hiram answered. Training. Hiram delivered a series of rapid strikes. Turan observed the master's form. Turan thought to himself. There was no movement. Each movement was the minimum preparation to apply the next force. Could this be the efficiency of a trained body? Hiram stopped and turned around. Turan raised a hand. Ah, I'm sorry. Did I interrupt you? Hiram asked. No. What did you see in my movement just now? Turan blinked. What? Turan answered. I thought it was incredible. Hiram looked at him. I see. Hiram pointed his sword at the ceiling. Most nobles consider martial arts insignificant because it is easier to attack from afar with magic. It's all because their physical bodies are weak. Since the mind cannot dominate the body, they rely on cheap tricks. Unless it's a bloodline specialized in physical combat, like the Hercules bloodline. Hiram looked at Turan. Focusing on magical power ends up being a more efficient decision. But, when going through trials, Turan remembered the massive monster he had faced. Turan thought to himself. Situations eventually arise that you must face, even if you want to avoid them. Hiram held the sword out by its blade. Hold this. Turan looked at the weapon. Hiram offered the hilt. Turan took the sword. Turan looked at Hiram. Didn't you lock me up here precisely because I'm a suspicious person? Is it really okay to give me a weapon? Hiram smiled. It doesn't matter. This is just a piece of iron. What makes it a sword is the body of the one wielding it. With your weak body as it is now, you cannot cut me. Turan looked at the steel. Turan thought to himself, well, what could I even do with this sword? Hiram narrowed his eyes. Look at that. A massive pillar of blue mana erupted from Turan's body and lit up the basement. Hiram shouted in a rage. That's not it. Don't pour mana into it. Turan lowered the blade. All right. Hiram corrected his posture. Put more weight on your front legs. Press it so the earth bears the blow. Your elbow is rising too much. With such weak elbows, you can't overcome the sword's weight. At this rate, your thigh will get pierced through. Raise your arm. Don't set your own limit. Turan panted as he adjusted his stance. Yes, sir. Good. 10 repetitions. Don't stop your breathing. Breathe into your muscles. That's a fine vessel. If possible, make time to wring that body dry. Mana is mere parlor tricks. Wizards mistakenly assume their physical abilities are guaranteed, but that's only the minimum function your body possesses. A properly trained body tears through the battlefield without the need of mana. You need to understand that difference. Turan exhaled a long breath. I'll bear that in mind. Turan looked toward the heavy doors as they opened. The matriarch bowed her head deeply. Pardon me, Turan, I have done something unforgivable to our benefactor. Turan sheathed the iron sword. I guess the young lady is unharmed. I am the one who should apologize. As a guest, my conduct was inappropriate. The matriarch looked up. Mesa wanted to give a proper apology. Would you happen to have some time? Turan walked through the quiet hallways of the mansion. This is troublesome. Misa stood on the balcony and looked out at the city. I heard you were trapped in the temple because of me? I'm sorry for causing such unnecessary commotion. Turan stopped beside her. It was necessary. I'm just glad you're safe. Misa looked at him curiously. Ah, that's right. That magic from yesterday. The one which makes animals rot. Is that perhaps an undisclosed bloodline magic? The mana consumption was absurd. Did you lie to me? Turan gestured with his hand. No. If you understand the principle, you should be able to use it easily as well. Misa crossed her arms. So you won't teach it for free. But if you don't reveal the method, there's no proof it isn't bloodline magic, is there? Turan spoke calmly. Oh, I don't particularly mind whether I win or not. Misa shouted. What do you mean? Listen, if this ends like this, how would I look? Fine then, how about this? If you tell me the secret of that magic, I'll teach you one of Arabian's secret arts in return. Turan smirked. No objections. In that case, Turan explained while holding a mummified rat. So basically, the root is bio-enhancement magic, but you used microorganisms no one can see? Turan replied. Correct. Misa frowned and looked at her hands. No wonder. That efficiency was abysmal because I didn't know things like that. Ah, how irritating. It is my loss then. I succeeded at the end, but it was brute force. Turan watched her. I considered that part of the wager. Misa pointed a finger at him. That's not right. When discussing magic skills, we don't include the amount of mana recklessly poured out. Could you tell Aziz that it's a draw? I don't want to see that guy getting cocky about winning. Turan nodded. Understood. Misa walked to a table and picked up a comb. Then, you must receive proper compensation. Let's see. This should do the job. Misa rubbed the comb against her hair. As you can see, when objects rub like this, they attract each other. This is. Turan looked at the floating strands. Static electricity. Misa blinked in shock. What? You knew? Turan answered. Yes. Misa groaned in frustration. This alone is one of the quite profound secret arts. Ugh. All right. I'll think a bit more about how to repay you. I need to find what you don't know. Turan replied. Very well. Misa looked at him firmly. Then, until sufficient compensation comes to mind. How about we train together from now on? This is just to repay my debt to you, not because I particularly need you, okay? Turan smiled. All right. Misa gestured to the gardens. Then starting tomorrow, let's meet in the garden in the evening. A grand feast was served in the dining hall with meat, soup, and pastries. The matriarch sat at the head of the table. The table isn't much, but please eat to your full. Aziz looked at the lavish spread. Why did you prepare it so lavishly? I've never seen things like this even on my birthday. Anyone who sees this would think Arabian's lord himself had visited. The matriarch spoke sternly. Be quiet. Turan looked at the food. Turan thought to himself. There's no way this is an ordinary meal. The matriarch addressed him. Then continuing from our earlier talk, my son promised a powerful magic tool as the price of his own life? Turan answered. Yes, that's correct. The matriarch asked. Do you have something specific in mind? Turan replied. I want something that aids in defense. It's easy to harm others with magic, but protecting oneself is difficult. If possible, it should be able to protect from surprise attacks. The father leaned on his hand. Since I've made similar items before, it shouldn't be difficult. But we don't have anything ready immediately. Mello raised his hand. Then may I make it for you? The father looked serious. If you're not thinking of dragging House Berg's honor through the mud, stop this. Mello stood up. I will make it. I just finished a commission from the main house recently, so I have time. Mello continued. How do you intend to make it? For defense against surprise attacks, something you carry at all times would be best. I'll embed mana into jewelry like rings, earrings, or necklaces to create a function that draws out a guardian bloodline's defensive power. Turan nodded. That's acceptable. The time frame? Mello answered. 1 month. The matriarch smiled. Nothing is more unseemly than a parent bragging about their child, but Mello is already a skilled wizard not far behind me. In essence, it means a magic tool, made by the head wizard of a house of the enchanter's bloodline, who has spent a month's time on it. Turan felt hesitant. I appreciate it, but isn't it a bit excessive? The matriarch spoke firmly. If this is excessive, doesn't it mean my son's life is worth that little? It's not excessive at all. Then for the next month, you must stay as a guest at our house. Please make yourself at home and stay comfortably. The sun rose over the city of Hisaril. Turan and Aziz walked through the market together. Aziz whispered, It seems mother has taken quite a liking to you. Actually, I spoke with her before bed yesterday and talked more about you. Your magic talent doesn't fall behind Mesa's, and on top of that, you never neglect your training. Originally, mother wanted to stop looking down on you by thinking you're just a wandering noble without proper backing. Turan replied, It sounds like she wants to recruit me into your house. Aziz laughed. That's right. She gives generously, then puts you in debt, then introduces a pretty young lady. That's how she tempts you. In fact, there are several adults in the house who joined that way. Turan sighed. This is troubling. Aziz waved his hand. Well, don't worry too much. Anyway, the magic tool is just something nice to buy your favor. You won't be forced to marry even if you want the magic tool. My mother isn't so lacking in refinement. Aziz asked. Oh, do you have anything to do for the rest of the day? Turan answered. I promised to train with Lady Mesa in the evening. Is something the matter? Aziz pulled him close. Evening? Then there's still quite a bit of time. All right, patrol with me instead. Hisaril may not be the capital, but there's plenty to enjoy. Surely you weren't planning to hole up in a corner training magic on a day like this? Turan admitted. Actually, I was. Aziz shouted. Oh, please. Life is too short not to enjoy it, my friend. The two walked past market stalls and visited the city's attractions. A roulette wheel spun in a luxury gambling hall. Aziz cheered at the tavern as they drank together. Turan looked at a wall covered in notices. Turan thought to himself. Kiorn. Turan stared at the poster of a man with long hair. Could it be that Kiorn? Turan watched two actors clashing swords on a wooden stage. A voice narrated the play. It was the year 2195 when the warriors of Arabian ventured into that demon desert, and there was a knight named Kiorn. Kiorn defeats the enemy with God's help after a hard-fought battle. Turan and Aziz watched the performance from the audience. Aziz asked, How was it? Was it worth watching? Turan smiled. Oh, it was very good. Turan remembered Korn's voice. I am merely an ordinary knight. Turan thought to himself. His humility is unmatched. Someday, when I meet Kiorn, I must ask if that story is really true. The sun set over the city walls and rose again. Morning light filled Turan's bedroom. Hiram stood over Turan as he slept. Did your body rest well? Turan sat up and rubbed his eyes. Oh, yes, but what brings you here? Hiram explained. I noticed yesterday that your vessel is quite good. Toughening time. Follow me. Turan asked. Are we going to train? Hiram answered. The body doesn't grow stronger by laying around but when it's being tempered. Do you not want to do it? Turan replied. No, let's go. I'll gain more that way than just playing. Aziz opened the door. Hey, Turan, I heard there was a really fantastic performance today. Aziz saw Hiram and gasped. Eek, uncle. Hiram turned his head. We're heading to training. You must also temper that weak body of yours. Will you come? Aziz backed away in fear. Huh? No. I was just out and came back now, so I haven't recovered yet. Aziz turned and sprinted down the hall. Turan wondered, why is he acting like that? Turan gritted his teeth as he performed push-ups with a heavy metal weight on his back. Hiram watched him closely. So that's how it was? Don't you hear your bodies cry? Once more. Turan groaned. Arg, Hiram shouted. Barely this much pain and you'll yield? Your mind is being dominated by your body's weakness. One last time. Turan's hands trembled against the floor. You, Hiram spoke. That's enough. Turan collapsed and panted heavily. Ah, Hiram asked. Is it tiring? Turan answered. Yes. Hiram smiled. At least you're a wizard, so doing this once is enough. Count yourself fortunate. Turan sat up. Is it different if you're not a wizard? Hiram answered. That's right. An ordinary body weakens again over time even after being tempered once. You need constant trials to maintain it in that case. But wizards have mana maintaining their bodies in optimal condition, so once forged into steel, it doesn't weaken. Well then, you must be fully rested now. Turan looked alarmed. No, I'm still. Hiram laughed. I know, your body doesn't lie. You've rested enough. Now, I'll teach you weaponry and combat. Turan screamed as the training continued. The narration explained. Days at House Bergs were fulfilling indeed. Turan ducked a strike from Hiram's sword. Hiram shouted, "This is a special space where the body becomes several times heavier than usual. One misstep and you'll be buried in the floor." The wooden blades clashed together. The narration continued. Waking up early, training with Hiram. Mage demonstrated a spell in the evening. Use finger friction like this. Sparks crackled from her hand. The narration continued. In the evening, I returned to the mansion to repeat magic training with Mesa, and before I knew it, 3 weeks had passed. Turan snapped his fingers and a bolt of blue lightning struck a target. Turan sighed. I missed again. Mage shook her head. You're struggling more than expected, Turan. Turan replied. It's because I'm not from Arabian. Mage looked up at the sky. It's hard for me to help too. I've never thought of aiming lightning magic that way. Turan asked. Doesn't it just hit if you shoot it? Mage answered. It's harder than one may think. A voice called out. Lady Mesa. Mage looked back. The knight approached the group. There you were. This man is. Mage spoke coldly. That's none of your business. What brings you here? I told the main house that no one should approach me while I'm recovering. The knight stood tall. The patriarch has summoned you. Mage asked. What is it? Answer quickly. If it's a trivial reason, you should prepare yourself to be punished. The knight explained. Dark elves have been rampaging extensively in the south. Turan and Mage looked shocked. 3 cities have already fallen, and they say they'll assemble an expedition force. A group of dark elves with glowing eyes emerged from the darkness. The narration concluded. They have appeared. Turan watched with a serious expression. Mage spoke calmly. I see. Tell them I'll be back soon. Mage sighed. I think I need to go. Oh, speaking of which. I should collect the payment for that disgusting decomposition magic. Mage clapped her hands together. Turan, did you know that electricity flows through the human body as well? Turan looked surprised. Electricity? Mage smirked. You didn't know? Well, there's no way you would. Since this is the secret of the Arabian house. How about we consider your debt paid if I teach this to you properly? Turan answered. It'll definitely be a great help. Mage nodded. I suppose so. When a person sees or feels something, that part sends a tiny electrical signal to the brain. If it's through the eyes, it goes from the eyes to the brain. And if it's a smell, it goes from the nose to the brain. Turan thought to himself. A tiny electrical signal. This electricity flows throughout the entire body. If I accelerate the electrical signals transmitted through those pathways. Turan's eyes crackled with blue energy. Turan's hands surged with electricity. Mage stopped walking and looked back. So, how's this? Turan panted and wiped sweat from his face. What is this? Blue lightning surged around his head. Turan groaned. Oh. Mage watched him. Looks like you pulled it off. Mage explained. That's because you poured out your mana so recklessly. It'll probably be hard to adjust right now because of the headache, but once you get used to it, you'll be able to maintain it for quite a while. Turan looked at her. This, no matter how much I think about it, this seems far too valuable compared to what I gave you. This is simply an investment. Since you seem to have some talent. If you end up learning an even more incredible spell in the future, I'll collect it all back, along with what you owe me for this. Mage disappeared in a flash of light. Turan watched her go. A falcon shrieked and its cry echoed over Morgan city center. The people cheered loudly. Glory to Arabian. Aziz smiled as he stood with Turan in the crowd. It's just a departure ceremony to hunt dark elves, but it feels like a victory parade. Just look at their enthusiasm. Aziz noticed a rider approaching. Ah! People shouted and waved. It's Mason. Mason, over here. The father grabbed Aziz's arm. Ashes. Maintain your composure as a noble. Aziz looked confused. Ah, father. But, the father gestured for silence. Shush. The head of the house is entering. A man with long brown hair walked forward with a heavy cape. Turan thought to himself. That person is the current head of the Arabian house. Badal Arabian. Turan noted. Ashes. The head of the house doesn't look well at all. He's so pale. Could his health be failing? Aziz answered. I heard rumors that he was severely injured while fighting the head of the Zahar house in the past. But since that was a long time ago, maybe it's just because of his old age. Badal raised his hand to the sky. A storm gathered instantly above the city. Golden lightning struck the ground with a massive roar and lit up the square. Turan gasped. Ah! The crowd screamed with joy. Wah! Long live Arabian! O Lord of Thunder! Protect your descendants! Turan watched the display. Turan thought to himself, this is the power of Arabian. Even with his body in such poor condition, he easily covers the entire area. The absolute pinnacle of magic reached by a human. One day, I will as well. Mello handed Turan a dark braided bracelet. Here you go. Just wearing it increases your physical stamina a bit, and if you inject mana, that level increases even further. At its limit, it reaches a level similar to the nobles of the Guardian bloodline, but it consumes a lot of mana, so it's best not to maintain it for too long. Turan examined the gift. This is truly an incredible treasure. An object like this probably wouldn't be common even among the great houses. It's an exceptionally well-made item. The matriarch approached him. Turan, do you have any interest in formally joining our house? Turan answered, I'm very grateful for the offer, but I think that would be difficult. The matriarch looked away at the window. I see. I've already heard the stories from Ashes. He said you have a lot to do, so you'd have a hard time settling down in one place. Just consider it an old woman's lingering attachments. Turan smiled. I will never forget the hospitality I received from you, madam. Ashes and the Berg family will be my friends forever. The matriarch nodded. Yes, that is enough. Turan walked down the corridor and saw Haram and Aziz waiting. Haram held out a dagger in a leather sheath. Take this. It's a magical device. It doesn't have any major functions, but it's durable, and the blade is quite sharp. Turan took the weapon and held it to his chest. Thank you, master. Haram smirked. Aziz draped a thick dark cloak over Turan's shoulders. What's this? Aziz explained. Didn't you say you were jealous of my clothes? They don't get dirty easily, and they mend themselves if lightly torn. Here, it's a shirt and some pants. Turan spoke softly. Aziz smiled. You're a good friend, Turan. Not just because you saved my life, but because spending time together and seeing the way you live gave me a lot to think about. So, where are you planning to go now? Turan answered. East, first. Aziz sighed and shook his head. So, Carmane? If it's over there, I've been there too. If you can avoid it, don't take a ship. The waves are truly the worst. Even the wine glasses end up dancing. Turan thought to himself, I would have to brave those waves to reach the land of Zahar, the Elril desert. But I can't say that. Aziz added, well, someone as stubborn as you won't starve to death anywhere. Return safely and pay me back for this cloak. Got it? Turan replied. Yeah. Turan stood in the golden field alone. Turan thought to himself, alone again. So, shall we run? Turan sprinted forward and left a trail of dust behind him. The city of Sibyllin faded into the distance as Turan ran at incredible speed. Turan walked along the mountain pass later that day. Turan sniffed the air and looked alert. The smell of a campfire? No, it's something far more disgusting. The smell of burning flesh. Turan stopped and stared in shock. A ruined village was engulfed in smoke and ash. Charred bodies were tied to wooden posts in the street. Turan thought to himself, could they have been attacked by bandits? The dark elves shouldn't have come this far. Turan searched the wreckage of a house. It's here. Turan grabbed a metal handle on the floor. Turan pulled the heavy wooden cellar door open. Turan looked into the dark basement. A little girl cowered in the corner and looked up. The girl shrieked in terror. She screamed. Turan raised his hands. Wait, calm down. I'm not an enemy. I came to help. The girl asked weakly. Really? Turan nodded. Yes. Can you tell me what happened? The girl sobbed and trembled. He killed everyone. That mage. Turan wondered. A mage? The girl collapsed to the ground. Turan picked her up and walked out into the sunlight. Turan thought to himself. Fortunately, it's nothing serious. She must just be exhausted from being trapped in the basement for so long. First, I need to get this child somewhere safe. A bowstring was drawn tight nearby. An arrow made of blue mana glowed in the light. A voice shouted, Found you. Turan looked up. A woman with a bow aimed at him from the rubble. On your knees. You murderous bastard. Turan stood calmly while holding the unconscious girl. Bison glared at him with fury. Wasn't this massacre enough for you? Trying to kidnap a little child. Don't move. The mage Gil raised his hand and summoned a burning spear of light. If you move, I'll... Turan looked at them. Wait, this is a misunderstanding. Gil released the magic and a massive explosion of fire consumed Turan and the child. Bison screamed in a panic. Gil, you idiot! There was a child there. Gil looked horrified as he lowered his hand. Oh no! It was an accident. I was so nervous that the smoke swirled around a dark silhouette. The dust cleared to reveal Turan standing completely unharmed. Turan thought to himself, I didn't think I'd have to use this so soon. The knights stared in disbelief. My god! Not a single burn mark. The leader gasped. He blocked the magic, with just his body? Bison wondered, what kind of defensive magic is that? Is it a bloodline ability? Turan spoke firmly. I'm not the one who attacked this village. I'll say it again, This is all a misunderstanding. But if you attack me again, I won't just defend myself. Bison lowered her blue mana bow and looked at the girl. That makes sense. There'd be no reason to cause such a tragedy, and then stay here just to save a child. Bison introduced herself. My name is Bison. And yours? Turan answered. Turan. Bison remained cautious. Even if the circumstantial evidence says otherwise, how can I believe you? Turan pointed to the child. Ask her when she wakes up. It seems she saw the real culprit. Bison looked shocked. What? She saw the arsonist? Turan asked. The arsonist? Bison asked. Don't tell me you don't know who he is. Turan replied. I don't. Bison shared the grim story. He's the mad mage who committed this atrocity. For the past few months, he's been periodically attacking isolated villages, tying up and burning the residents alive. Since there are no survivors, we don't even know his gender. All we know about this person is that they call him the arsonist. The little girl slowly opened her eyes. Well, he was wearing a red cloak and had a beard. He had a scary look, like a lumberjack. The group of knights stood in the clearing. Bison bowed her head. I'm sorry. We were rude because we were so impatient. It was clearly my mistake to point a weapon at you. The other knight bowed as well. I'm sorry too. Turan remembered his old friends. Turan thought to himself. Even among nobles, some let their sense of duty override their reason. It seems he felt some envy seeing you. You were an honest and good leader, Maiden. Since you were concerned about the child's health first, that's what matters. So, did you come here to capture the arsonist? Yes, since someone was at the site of a fresh fire. I thought we'd caught the culprit this time, but it turned out like this. But now that we have a description, we'll catch him soon. We have a natural tracker among us. Turan asked. A tracker? Don't tell me. Are you from the Zahar family? Then why are you in a place like this? Bison explained. No, I'm Bison Karman. Of the Karman family. I came from Abicha, and these are my friends from our vassal families. Asha here is a descendant of someone whose ancestors mixed blood with a Zahar noble. That bloodline manifested weakly. She's good at tracking magic, but has no talent for concealment. In the family, they call it a primitive bloodline. Bison looked at Turan. More importantly, Mr. Turan, I have a request for you. Could you help us hunt down the arsonist? You can have the entire reward for his capture. I'll even give you my share of the mana. All I need is to earn the merit for the mission. Turan asked. This arsonist, do you know his power level? Bison answered. He's definitely a noble level mage. Some of the villages he attacked were protected by several knights, and yet, they were all killed. Turan thought to himself. Killed several knights. Maybe he's exactly the kind of opponent I need right now. Since the weak demonic beasts along the road don't increase my strength anymore. Turan spoke. Fine. First, let's get the child to safety. They arrived at a nearby town that was still standing. Turan handed a bag of gold to a villager. Here, take this. It's enough money to raise this child until they're grown. The man bowed. Of course. You can count on me. Turan looked at the girl. I'll be back in a few years to check in. Asha closed her eyes and focused her magic. The tracker stood in the center of the ruins. Bison asked. Well? Asha looked toward the woods. We still need to look a bit more. Bison ordered. All right, let's move. Which way? Asha pointed. This way. Asha led them through the dense forest. Turan asked. How exactly are you tracking him? Asha explained. First, I looked for human footprints, and when they reached the main road, I followed the scent of ash. If he hasn't changed clothes, he'll still be covered in ash residue. Turan thought to himself. Quite professional. She couldn't find him before because she didn't even know his gender? Asha's eyes glowed with a bright blue light. Found it. The tracker sprinted forward. Bison shouted. Wait, Asha! Slow down a bit. They reached a cave entrance hidden in the rocks. Bison took a deep breath. Mr. Turan, come to the front with me. The rest of you, stay back. Bison created a magical light orb. Is someone inside? Asha whispered. There's one person. They walked deep into the dark cavern. A man in a red cloak stood in a large chamber. The arsonist asked. What brings you gentlemen to such an isolated place? Bison whispered. Is that the arsonist? Asha nodded. I'm picking up a strange scent. It's him. Bison aimed an arrow of ice. It must be. I'll confirm it. Are you the killer who kidnapped and burned the villagers nearby? The arsonist smiled wickedly. I'm not quite sure what you mean. The man suddenly threw his hand forward. A massive wall of fire erupted and filled the cave. Gil screamed in pain. Turan stepped into the flames and reached out his hand. The fire parted around him as he used his defensive magic. Bison fired an arrow. The arsonist screamed in agony as blood sprayed. Turan thought to himself. Changing the terrain? Wasn't he from a pyromaniac's bloodline? Bison screamed. The burner lunged at Turan. The burner was shocked. He screamed in pain as Turan struck him. The burner shrieked in agony. The burner screamed. Turan stood over him. Bison asked, "Did you defeat him?" Turan answered, "I suppose so. I'll handle this side, so please look after the others." Turan thought to himself, "I've sealed his legs and arms, so it's over." Turan ordered, "Hey, wake up." The man groaned. The burner smirked with broken teeth. Turan held a sharp blade to his neck. "Stop. If you use mana, I'll kill you right now." The burner asked, "Who the hell are you people? How did you find this place?" Bison stepped closer. "We have our ways." "So, you're the burner, aren't you?" The man remained silent. The burner screamed in agony. Turan demanded, "Answer quickly. Why is a wandering noble burning the villagers of this area to death?" Turan thought to himself, "Mercy is unnecessary for murderers." The burner laughed maniacally. "God told me that if I burn the souls and flesh of those laden with sin, I can draw closer to God." The knight asked, "What?" The burner shrieked, "God taught me the secret way to gain bloodline power. Just a few more times of burning humans to death, and I'll gain the pyromaniac's bloodline." Bison looked disgusted. "So you're just insane? To try to gain an inborn bloodline that way? By committing mass murder for such a deranged reason?" Turan looked at him coldly. "Even ordinary people can gain that power by killing monsters. I've already seen several wizards do it." The burner muttered, "I need to burn them to death just a few more times, and I too will gain the power of a pyromaniac." Turan thought to himself, "That's not just the ravings of a madman. Perhaps I've come to know the secret of this world."